To Tom's Comic Curios, where we talk about, I talk about comic books and magazines that you don't usually hear about anywhere else. So I thought, why not take an in-depth look at one of my favorite humor magazines, and a very nostalgic magazine, I would think, for a lot of people, because it just deals with, well, all humor magazines deal with popular culture of their time, but Bananas Magazine is a little bit different because it's not, or it wasn't, for most of its run, just a humor magazine, but it was half and half a humor magazine and the other half a pop culture magazine. So, with serious articles about the pop culture of the time. And not just pop culture, but other human interest stories and things like that. So, let's take a look at Bananas. Hopefully, this will be interesting to people. It's going to be a long video. That's one reason I've been putting this off. Like I said, I've been thinking about making this for a while, but to top out Bananas Magazine is going to take a while to show you all my Bananas magazines, right? So, let's start. Let's get to it. Feel free to watch like part of this video at a time, because like I said, I know this is going to be a long video. I haven't made a video in a long time though, so hopefully that will be good, Hopefully people will enjoy that. So anyway, let's get to it. I like to try to get this stuff faster because I think people get bored, if you just ramble on too much at the beginning. But, okay, Bananas Magazine. This is the very first issue of Bananas. So, you've probably heard of Dynamite Magazine. Most people have that grew up in the 70's and 80's. It was published by Scholastic, which is, the educational... they're not all educational books, obviously, but it's sort of that has that bent to it. It's for young people. They sell their books through schools, or at least they used to. I don't know if they do anymore. Probably still do. They used to have book fairs. They did when I was in school. Scholastic book fairs. Now, there's some nostalgia for you, right? So what would happen is you'd be in school. They'd pass around a flyer and have all these books, and it would be very exciting for all the kids, like every that time of year when the Scholastic flyer would go around, and you could pick out the books you wanted to buy. Paperbacks, magazines, poster books, all sorts of things they had. Scholastic had, and of course they still publish today. So Dynamite Magazine was their foray into developing a magazine for young people, for kids, about the pop culture of the time. And it had pictures of celebrities on the cover, just like Bananas Magazine. But yeah, it was for younger kids than Bananas Magazine. And I never read it. I actually never read Dynamite Magazine, which is going to be funny for people because I'm a huge Bananas fan. Most people were Dynamite fans, right? And you'll find a lot more videos about Dynamite on YouTube than you will Bananas. So, I have a few issues of Dynamite just because I kind of wanted to read it, and I read a couple of issues, and like I said, it's for kids. If I was a kid, I guess I probably would have thought it was really cool, but you have to be a kid, I think, more or less, or have grown up during that time as a kid to really have the nostalgia for it now. But it was a good magazine for kids, a great magazine for kids, and it was edited by Jane Stine. Jane Stine is R.L. Stine's wife. R.L. Stine is the guy, I'm sure everybody knows, that wrote all those millions, seems like millions, right? Hundreds of Goosebumps books that came out in the 1990s, which I never read either, because I was a little too old for them at the time. But they look interesting, and again, if I was a kid, I probably would have loved those books, because Choose Your Own Adventure are the books I grew up with. Remember those books where you could choose different pathways? Well, those were the big thing when I was in school, and I love those. I was so into those, I'd go to the library and get all the ones I could. So anyway, Goosebumps are different than that, obviously, but they're kind of scary horror books for kids, and they, like I said, they look really cool. So R.L. Stine became rich doing those books. But before he did those books, he worked for Scholastic as well. And he, like I said, his wife edited Dynamite magazine. And he came up with his own magazine for teenagers. So Dynamite was for younger kids and for elementary school kids, to say. And R.L. Stine, who was known as Jovial Bob Stine then, and in Bananas magazine, that's what he's credited as, Jovial Bob Stine, thought, hey, I always wanted to have my own humor magazine. He always wanted to have a mad type of magazine. So he pitched the idea to Scholastic for a mad type humor magazine for teenagers, and he came up with Bananas. So this is the first issue of Bananas. It came out in the fall of 1975, which is before I was born, by the way. just want to say that. But it took me years. Oh, I have to say, it took me years and years to build this Bananas collection. But I've read every single issue more than once. And it is really funny. Humor magazines, I feel, can appeal to adults as well as younger people because the references are nostalgic. You have to know about the past to get the jokes a lot of the times when you're dealing with politics, which there are no politics in Bananas, but for other humor magazines. And just the references to pop culture, everything like that. And there's a lot of jokes you wouldn't get as a kid, right? That you get as an adult. So this magazine is for a younger audience than some humor magazines. But, Mad Magazine, Crack Magazine, ostensibly for the same audience, right? Especially Crack Magazine. Because I always got the feeling it was for a slightly younger audience than Mad. Well, it was. So anyway, Bananas for teenagers, right? And it's a lot of fun. It's really fun. If you like corny jokes, you'll like Bananas. You'll just like it. You can read it today and get a lot of laughs out of it. Because I'll say another thing is, Bananas is different than the other humor magazines because it has its own... Well, all humor magazines, most of them anyway, have their own flavor. They're all different. People like to say they're all rip-offs of Mad. I don't like that. I don't like that because a lot of them have their own flavor, their own character that's different than Mad. Sure, they do things that Mad does, obviously. Movie satires, TV satires, because that's the basic format, right? That Mad laid out. But they have their own pathways as well. They have their own voices and characters. So R.L. Stine's humor is very weird sometimes. Well, I guess his Goosebumps books, I haven't read them, but there's probably a lot of weird stuff in them too, right? Kind of a sort of a characteristics of R.L. Stine. Goosebumps people, you could tell me in the comments if there's a certain kind of characteristics about Goosebumps, or I wish I could say more because I haven't read them, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but hopefully people will know what I'm talking about. But in this, he's very corny, but he's also very unusual, and his humor is off the wall, and it's out there, and I think that makes it really enjoyable to read even as an adult, because it's weird. It's just weird humor. Okay, so we're just on the first issue. It's going to take forever. But anyway, the first issue has, it has Freddie Prinze Jr., not Jr., Freddie Prinze Sr., right? His dad, Junior's dad, who's starring in Chico and the Man at the time. Unfortunately, he committed suicide. It's very sad, probably soon after this. But there he is on the cover. And J.J. Walker, who was in, it's funny because his catchphrase on Good Times, that was a show he was on, Good Times, was Dynamite, which was, so he should be on Dynamite magazine. I'm sure he was on Dynamite magazine. But anyway, he's on the first issue of Bananas. So who's funnier, Freddie Prinze Sr. or J.J. Walker? Yeah, just make sure I got his name right. Okay. So anyway, maybe I should turn the light on. It's getting there. You can see better. Okay, there we go. Whoa, lots of light now. Okay. So, the first thing you get in Bananas is, well, a lot of humor magazines in their first issue, they print fake letters, and Bananas is no exception. And they're quite funny. Bananas came with posters, just like Dynamite magazine did. So, the first issue has a Robert Redford poster in it. So, if you're a fan of Robert Redford, you put that on your wall. The contents pages for Bananas, every one of them has a different graphic design. And they're quite creative. So, we start out... Now, remember I said that Bananas wasn't all humor for most of its run. But it was also human interest stories for teenagers and pop culture stories. So, we start off with a story about a dirt biker. This girl named Lori. Then we have a fake ad. And these ads are really funny. I should mention that a lot of Bananas magazine is written by Bob Stine, R.L. Stine as well. And showcases his off-the-wall, wacky kind of humor. Which is, like I said, this stuff is really funny. Like it's selling duck biscuits. Like who would even think of that? Duck biscuits, right? It's almost like a Monty Python type humor that R.L. Stine has. It's very funny if you like that type of humor, which I do. Well, I actually haven't seen much Monty Python. I'm saying I haven't seen much, but but anyway, this guy. Well, one thing about Bananas is that they would have fumettis in Bananas. They would have picture stories and funny stories starring real people, like in the humor pieces as well as in the human interest pieces, right? And they'd have regulars in Bananas. You'd see the same faces from issue to issue, so you get familiar with them. It'd be almost like the Bananas cast of characters. And this guy was an older guy that worked at the offices, and Sam Viviano, who is the art director for Mad Magazine, in the 80s, or I don't know if he was in the 80s, in the 90s, he might have been in the 80s too, I don't know, 90s, 2000s. I had some correspondence with him through email about Bananas through a third party, and he gave me some background on... So I asked him some questions about that I wanted to know about, and he said that this guy seemed like he was an ancient guy at the time because he was like the oldest guy that worked there. And he is a very fun-loving type of guy, and I guess he probably loved starring in like funny advertisements and funny things, and he became known as Uncle Buzzy in the magazine. I don't know what his real name is. Okay. So, then we have a feature on Don Martin. So, if you're a Mad Magazine fan or Crack Magazine fan, then you want to track down this issue of Bananas because you probably didn't realize that there's an actual interview with Mr. Don Martin, the great Don Martin, in this issue. There's a picture of him, a rare picture of Don Martin in the mid-70s. So then we get like a guide to blind dates, like teenage type articles. There's fashion articles, so if you're into that sort of thing. And then there's something that I found really, really neat. There's something called Weird Unsolved Mysteries. This is the first one, obviously the first issue. But this is an ongoing feature. What it is each issue, they feature an actual unsolved mystery from history. So, strange phenomenon, strange paranormal things going on, like real stories. And I've always been interested in that sort of stuff. Since I was a boy, I've been interested in unexplained phenomena and stuff like that. So, yeah, so you get that in here. And I did read this magazine as a kid in elementary school and high school as well. Although I got them in secondhand stores because by the time that Um, but by the time I was in elementary school, Bananas magazine was almost over. It was almost finished. So yeah, I got these in secondhand stores um, when I was a kid. They have reprints of some Gahan Wilson cartoons from Playboy magazine, which is just weird to me. I mean, there's nothing, Playboy about it besides just being, unusual cartoons. But it's just funny to still see that in a Scholastic magazine. Then we have our feature article of Who's Funnier. And they give some samples of their jokes so you can decide for yourself. And then we have another feature that continued throughout Bananas, the Fun and Games feature. So we have some comic strips. Zoe was one that ran the early issues. It didn't run for very long. For a while, they had reprints of Smokey Stover comics. Another neat thing about Bananas, you can see, is it's in color. And all the other humor magazines, except for National Lampoon and its competitors, were in color. All the other humor magazines, except for National Lampoon and its competitors, were in black and white at the time. So it was really neat. Scholastic had a bigger budget to see a humor magazine in color. Sheldon, that didn't run very long, but it's a very interesting little comic. Animal Crackers. Yeah, these early ones didn't run as long as some ones that came later on. Then you always get a crossword puzzle and Shirley Holmes Detective, which is one of those like Encyclopedia Brown type things or whatever, where it's a mystery you have to try to figure out. Oh, and they always do these things in Bananas flashbacks in the earlier issues, where they have a star, a celebrity they'd feature, and this is Robert Redford, and they give you like a biography of that person. Not really in-depth biography, but a biography with pictures of them and everything. And that's the serious part, like it's serious stuff mixed with humor. Weird, but it worked. They had this funny article, You Asked For It, which is a humor article, where they'd pretend that readers would write in asking for certain things, and they'd be asking for ridiculous things, crazy things that didn't make any sense. And it's very, very funny. Then we have a parody of TV Guide. So, this is the typical humor magazine stuff. Very good parody of TV Guide. See, it just looks like TV Guide, too. Very well done. Very funny. Then we have a sports article, serious one. We have a Barry Manilow article. If you're a Barry Manilow fan, there's an article about him in here. Recipes. They even have recipes for people. Classic Comedy Corner. This is a recurring feature where they feature classic comedians from the past. So the first issue features the Marx Brothers. And I love the Marx Brothers, especially Groucho Marx. I always say Groucho Marx and John Biner are my favorite comedians. This is a reprint of one of their routines from Duck Soup. So, back then, you didn't have VCRs. You didn't have, you couldn't just play movies whenever you want. You didn't have DVDs or VHS tapes, right? So you'd read in here, you say, oh, I like that movie Duck Soup, and you can sort of just relive it by reading the routine in the magazine. You can act it out with your friends, which is something I did when I was a kid. I'd get friends and, we'd play the parts and everything. Then we had Headlines, which is a serious column where teenagers with problems could write in. And this Herbert F. Waldhorn was a psychologist, and he would answer their questions. Then we had a fashion column, which you can ask for fashion tips, so that's serious stuff. But then we have Bananas Classified, which are hilarious classified ads. Really funny stuff. Like it says, lost one yo-yo, answers to name of Duncan, no reward but many happy returns. This is a yo-yo, and Okay. Um, Looking for heavy lumps of coal? Call Eddie, evenings only. Funny, just weird, funny things like that. Nellie, we know you can't read, but maybe some nice person will read this to you. We miss you. Your supper's on the table right where you left it. It's getting moldy. Please hurry home. And then selling duck biscuits again. There's a duck biscuit theme in this issue. Very funny, very funny. They'd have contests at the back. He could win an electric typewriter in this one. And then there's the Robert Redford poster. So it would, I'm not going to, it's attached to the magazine, so I can't show you the whole thing, but. So yeah, and at the back, it never fails, which is pretty much, I think it might have been every back cover, or not every back cover, but most of them of Bananas, which is like, it never fails. It says, when you finally work up the nerve to call a girl for the first time, her father answers the phone and says, who's calling? It's that kind of thing, and they'd have readers would write in with their it never fails, and they could get their name printed like on the back cover and get their it never fails printed. So that's the first issue of Bananas. So now as I go through these, I'm not going to go like every single issue. This could take forever, right? But I'm not going to go like in depth over it. I'll show you them all. But so that's the first issue, and I'd like to talk about the shows on the covers as well. If I have things to say. Well, those two shows, Good Times and Chico and the Man, I've never seen them. Okay, I know about them. I know about all these shows, but some of them I just never watched, right? It's kind of like before I was born, so. But, that doesn't matter. I don't like when people say that, because you can enjoy things from the past. Everything I enjoy is from the past, right? The Ed Sullivan Show, which was, canceled like years before I was born, is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and I'm always watching older stuff. So I don't like modern popular culture. I'm not into anything current at all. So I say, people today don't just stick with what's new and current. Look at the past. Look at the great stuff from the past that you can enjoy. That's what I say. So anyway, second issue of Bananas has Robert Blake on the cover, who had some troubles later on. Was on trial for, well, let's not go into it anyway, but you can look that up online. But anyway, he starred in a show called Beretta, which my mom was a big fan of. I've never seen that either. But there he is. He was in The Little Rascals when he was a kid. So yeah, we get an article on him, and all this sort of stuff. I can show you a few things in each issue. There's an article on Stevie Wonder in this issue. If you're a fan of his, you can read that. The humor parts are always my favorite part of the magazine. Obviously, that's why I have the magazine. So classic comedy, or like I said, I do want to show you. I probably will show you a lot of stuff, but Abbott and Costello for this issue. And of course, it's their Who's on First routine. So that would be really cool. You act that out with your friends, Get the comics. Then we have a parody of a teen magazine, Fab magazine. So, the typical features you'd see in a magazine like that. And it's very funny. That goes on for a while. Mary Tyler Moore is, they give the biography of her this issue. Weird Unsolved Mysteries, of course, like I said. There's now, you might be interested in this. There's an article on Dr. Demento in this issue. So if you don't know who that is, he's famous for playing oddball records on the radio. Like he'd play like Leonard Nimoy singing, or novelty records from the past, He's got quite a fan base, too. And then we have the Superheroes Convention. And this is interesting because the artwork is by Al Jaffe. That's right, Mad Magazine's Al Jaffe. And the text is Jerry DeFuccio, who is also with Mad Magazine. So, Mad fans, here's something else that you probably have never seen before. That's some pretty obscure Al Jaffe art. Great art, of course. So that's the second issue of Bananas. It has all the features that the first issue did, you know, the regular features, like most of them do. Oh, I forgot to mention. So these came out in the fall of '75. When Bananas first came out, it was published, I think, every other month. So they're kind of testing out the market to see if it could sustain this, if this magazine would be popular enough, and it must have been, because the next fall, Bananas went to monthly during the school year. Bananas would come out during the school year from about September, I guess it'd be September to around April or so. Bananas would be published. So, and then they'd take the summers off, but eventually they would issue yearbooks during the summers, but we'll get to that. So it's almost like it's like a TV season. It's like Bananas was published in like a TV season, basically. Like this is season 1 of Bananas, 75, 76, you could say. So there's only 4 issues in the first season of Bananas because they were just testing it out. And after that, there's 7 or 8, I think. Yeah, I forget. But anyway, the third issue has Elton John on the cover. These are collectible too because of the celebrities on the cover. This had a disco poster in it. A lot of my copies don't have the posters anymore. Some do, some don't. Now, this is what I mean by these contents pages. Contents pages being very creative. Each one is different. It has a very cool graphic on it. Here's something neat. If classes had to advertise, so if high school classes need to advertise to get people to enroll in the class, so like speech and drama class, National Lampoon did a similar article to this, like for college classes. We have Elton John's scrapbook with a bunch of pictures of him, but I think this is a humorous article, so there are funny captions on the pictures. Article on Kung Fu. Kung Fu was very big in the mid-70s. See, there's a lot of nostalgia in these, so that's why I like to show a lot of these too, because we can talk about, a lot of the things that were going on at the time. Okay, now here's the first issue that features the Joe comic. This is one of the best comics, probably actually the best comic in Bananas. Joe became popular and ran in most issues of Bananas up until the end, and it's by Jay Holmstrom, who you may have heard of. I think he worked for like Punk Magazine and Stop Magazine, and so he was in Bananas. You recognize his artwork. And at first, the Joe comics weren't as funny, but they got funnier as they went on. They started to become really hilarious, really, really good. And there's that hilarious "you asked for it" fake column again, which is really good. Now, the earlier issues of Bananas, which is, about half of them, at least half, probably more than half of them, are all in color. Later on, when they started to lose money, they switched to like half black and white, but that's later on. Again, you get all these comics in the middle of the magazine, which are always fun. The disco poster card keeps falling out because it's not attached. Now we have a This Is Your Life, Cher. So, biography of Cher, who the Sonny and Cher show was very, very popular until they got divorced, and then the show ended. Then they had their individual shows. There was a Cher show and a Sunny show, and neither one of them did very well on their own in their own variety show. I mean, Cher did obviously in her career, but their variety shows separately didn't do that well. And then they got back together again, Sunny and Cher, but it wasn't really the same. Like, I mean, they got together again in a variety show, but I guess they were divorced at the time and it wasn't really the same. Another one of those Gahan Wilson cartoons from Playboy. Another weird unsolved mystery. Every issue has a weird unsolved mystery. The featured comedians in this issue are Smith and Dale. Now, Smith and Dale you may not be familiar with, but they were the Sunshine Boys, starring George Burns and Walter Matthau. Is sort of kind of is based on those guys. So they were a vaudeville team, Smith and Dale, like starting out in the 1920s at least. I don't know, it might even been before that. And their career went on right until the late 60s or early 70s or whatever. They stayed together all that time. They're on Ed Sullivan. So they're quite funny too. So we get one of their routines in this issue. The fourth issue and the last issue of the first season of Bananas is number 4 and features the $6 Million Man. This one's not in very good shape. See, now there's Uncle Buzzy again. Another fascinating contents page. So we get an article on Lee Majors, and then we get the very first television parody that they did in Bananas. So they started doing these like most of the humor magazines do. And they're good. They're a lot shorter than Mad or Cracked television parody or Crazy or Sick or whatever any of those magazines. You know, a Cracked or Mad parody would go maybe 7 or 8 pages. Some of these were only 2 or 3 pages long. But they're still funny. And the artwork here is by Bob Taylor, who worked for Sick magazine in the 60s. And he is a fantastic artist. And then he worked for National Lampoon in the 70s and 80s doing a comic called Timberland Tales and another one called The Appletons, which were very popular in the Lampoon magazine. And he's an excellent cartoonist. So he worked for Bananas a lot. He's in a lot of Bananas issues, Bob Taylor. So you'll see his art in these. Oh, I love this. Okay, so this issue featured a parody of a high school newspaper. So this one's called The Fire Plug. And it is really, really funny. Like, it's just, if you've heard of the high school yearbook that National Lampoon did, which was a parody of an actual high school yearbook, which is a classic. It's funny, it's poignant, it's something. Like, if you ever read it, it's something, let me tell you. It's an amazing parody of a yearbook, which may not sound funny, but it is. So this is along those lines, but of course it's Bananas magazine is wholesome. It's always wholesome. There's nothing, adult in it, like you get in Lampoon or But this is really funny stuff. So like teens collect cans for some reason. So they often have charity drives in high school. You're collecting things or you're selling things or whatever for a specific cause. Well, the teens at the Fire Plug, wherever the school was, Feverish High School in Feverish, Indiana, they collect cans, but they don't know why. They just do it. So, and then the themes for the prom are really funny and everything. And it's a pretty long parody. It's really good. So they don't have too many people at their sporting events, as you can see. It's funny stuff. Very funny stuff. And then we have a Linda Ronstadt article. So if you're a fan of hers, you might want to track this down. We have Burt Reynolds, biography of Burt Reynolds. And then we have the classic comedy duo, or well, they are a duo, yeah, Bob and Ray, for this issue. So Bob and Ray fans, there's a reprint of their parody of Kojak, which starred Telly Savalas. You remember the bald-headed guy, detective in the 70s. Their parody is called Rorschach, and they reprint that in this issue. This is probably going to be the longest video I've ever made. Like I said, you might want to just watch part of this video at a time. But it's worth it just to show you this magazine. And because I haven't made a video in so long. Oh, wrestling fans, you'll be interested in this. There is a look at 1970s wrestling. Which this is before wrestling was really mainstream. I know that Newt from Asshat Podcast is a big wrestling fan, so you might want to track down the issue number 4 of Bananas with the $6 Million Man on the cover, because just to get this article, because that's a pretty rare look at 70s wrestling, I would say. Then we have some parodies of superheroes and stuff like that. So okay, so Bananas went well. It was popular enough that it was picked up for a second year. I am making it sound like a television show now. Scholastic said, yeah, keep doing it and come out more often. So they started coming out every month. So now we move into the 1976-1977 year of Bananas. So the 5th issue of Bananas. And I like how they have if you're ever wondering where the number is in Bananas, because it's not like inside the magazine or anything. The only place you can find it is right up here in the corner. See, it says 5 right up there. So if you're looking at Bananas magazines, if you find any and you're like, what number is this? Well, that's where you find it. Like, well, not there, but on this side right here. There. It's hard to do when you do it backwards. Okay, over there. So the Fonz. There was nothing bigger in the mid-70s than the Fonz, right? Happy Days. I used to watch Happy Days, reruns of Happy Days again when I was a kid. And I liked it. I haven't seen it since I was a kid. But almost everybody watched Happy Days, right? So there you have Henry Winkler as the Fonz on the cover. Very cool cover. Very cool. Hey! Sit on it! That's what the Fonz would say. Kick the jukebox, to make it go. Oh, man, that's funny. Anyway, and then the contents pages are still very creative. Now, a parody of those ads, where you say you get like 500 8-tracks for 10 cents or whatever, but there was always, well, I'm exaggerating, but here's like 400 tapes, only 10 cents, but then you have to owe them like your firstborn or something like that. Or, there's always some catch to it, right? That's a parody of those ads, very funny. And then we have an expanded letters column, and I think the letters are mostly real in Bananas, if not entirely. But R.L. Stine's answers are very sarcastic and very funny to the letters. Now, there you go. The Fonz. We have a visit with the Fonz. A whole feature-length article on it. So if you're a Fonz fan, you got to get that. A test to see, are you cool? And now, okay, so here's an article called 20 Things You Can Do with a Rubber Chicken. Rubber chicken jokes were a recurring gag in Bananas magazine. And they actually printed some rubber chicken posters in some of them. The Weird Unsolved Mysteries has been expanded. And very, very creepy illustrations, as you can see. Remember, these are real stories, like scary stories. you know, not funny stuff for that. Bananas TV preview, since this is the first issue of the new year. In the fall, that is, right? Like the TV shows. And those are not real shows. That was Bob Taylor art again. And, you know, funny. That was funny stuff, like Mad Crack type stuff. So if you're a fan of humor magazines, you should track down Bananas. A lot of humor magazine fans don't collect Bananas because I don't think they realize how much of a humor magazine it is. The funny classifieds. We have our comics. Now, Joe is now a regular part of the comic section. Eventually, he gets an entire page in every issue. This time, in their classic comedy corner, we feature W.C. Fields and Charlie McCarthy. Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen, of course, Edgar Bergen was the ventriloquist. Charlie McCarthy is a dummy. He's probably the most famous ventriloquist of all time, I would say. W.C. Fields would get into feuds with his dummy on the radio and in movies. And that's what this is, some reprints of some of their classic feuds. There's a story on Diana Ross from the Supremes. So you get a biography of her in this issue, lots of pictures. And then they started a new feature for this year called Strange Worlds of Science Fiction, which are actual science fiction stories, short stories. So not humorous, but, sci-fi stuff. We have a parody of a high school science fair, which is very funny. R.L. Stine really liked old jokes, like corny old jokes. And so he started a regular column called Just in Jest to feature old jokes. And that morphed into something else later. I forget what it was called. It may have been called These Are the Jokes, Folks. A gymnastics article. Gymnastics was popular in the mid-70s too because there was this girl in the Olympics. I think her name was like Nadia Comaneci or something. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. I think that's who was really popular in the mid-70s. Was in the news all the time. And at the back of the magazine, you can win a rubber chicken. So they have a contest to win a rubber chicken too, see? In the back of the magazine, we have things that were going on at the time. So it's like a gossip column, basically. So did you hear, Jerry Lewis is going to be on Broadway. He's going to be in this new show. Or Fleetwood Mac, there's rumors that they're going to break up. Bob Dylan is a new TV special coming out. Is it true Linda Ronstadt is dating Jerry Brown, the governor? Dolly Parton, Emmylou Harris, things like that. And they'd have like a grapevine, like a gossip grapevine in the back, which is real, not humorous again. Number 6 features Welcome Back Kotter. Well, the Sweat Hogs anyway. His students, not Gabe Kaplan. He's not there. And I think I'm going to start to go faster because I just realized, how many issues there are here, and this is how long this is going to take. So, you're getting a good idea of what's in Bananas, though. So, we'll just look at the covers for a bit before we go inside again. So number 7, that was 6. Number 7, John Denver. Oh, well, I have to show you this though. Look at that contents page. That is really cool. Most creative contents pages I've ever seen. Nick, the artist of this is Nick Gamarlo. I think that's what that says. Okay, I do like to show you stuff. I can't help it. Okay, so a parody of t-shirt ads. T-shirts were really popular at the time. Like, this is when it became fashionable to wear a t-shirt, you know, like this here, that says something on it. I mean, that was a novelty in the 70s. So this is an ad for t-shirts that don't say anything. You know, which, a parody ad, of course. We have some reprints of John Denver lyrics. A fake holiday gift catalog, which are really funny things you can buy. Inflatable oxes, a telephone you can eat. Not real things, of course, but parody. Oh yeah, this was such a well-designed magazine. Like, the Weird Unsolved Mysteries features the Bell Witch. You may have heard of that story if you've read about strange phenomena. Now they have these kind of things. You know it's time to break up when. That's a Mad Magazine type of thing. Bruce Day. See, Bananas is really coming into its own now. A James Dean article. It's hard to go fast through these. There's so much good stuff to show you. A look at a Star Trek convention. So this is the early days of Trekkies. Or Trekkers. There's Leonard Nimoy talking at one of the early conventions there. That's a serious article. There's a Smothers Brothers section. Killer bees. Killer bees were a big thing then. People were afraid they were going to get stung by killer bees because there was like a swarm of them supposedly coming to North America or something like that. And of course, SNL, Saturday Night, did that killer bee sketch. Okay, so number 8 has these dudes on the cover. I'm sure you all know who those guys are. This is a harder issue to find, as you can imagine, because they're on the cover. And it's got a feature article on them. So if you're a fan of the Fab Four, as they are called, and you want to try to get this issue. I saw a copy of this at here's the article on them. At an antique store for about $20. And I didn't buy it. So I did find a cheaper copy eventually. So there's the article on them. Parody of Good Housekeeping magazine, Good House Creeping. These magazines, I always love magazine parodies and humor magazines. Always love that. I love to read too, so I don't mind when there's a lot of text. I like that. This story right here, I read a reprint of this story in I think a Bananas yearbook when I was in elementary school, and it scared me. It scared me so much, this weird unsolved mystery about aliens. I remember I read it in front of one of my elementary school classes too, because I just want everybody to hear about the story. Really scary story. Well, if you're a kid, you know. There's an article about Rhoda. Rhoda was a popular television show. You still got the science fiction stories. Now, this is interesting. Instead of classic comedy comedians, classic comedy movie comedians, I mean, they have an article on James Thurber. So, a writer, an actual comedic writer. And that's really fascinating if you're, if you want an introduction to his work, or if you're a fan of his work. This one actually has a poster, a calendar in it. 1976. I think that's where we are, right? No. It should be 77. I don't know. Anyway, it's got a calendar. Oh, here's another one that's hard to find because it's in demand. It's number 9 has Charlie's Angels on the cover. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I have every single issue of Bananas. So, yeah, I'm showing you every single issue in this video. I mean, that's why it's going to be so long. It already is. But Bananas has... I probably won't make another video for a long time, though, after this. So take your time with this video, you know. Okay, so Charlie's Angels. Very popular show in the 70s. I never saw it, but, you know, I can understand why people love to see it, especially guys. You know, Farrah Fawcett, Kate Jackson, and Jacqueline Smith, I believe, are the girls, or the original girls. And that's a very cool cover. I like that cover. And I can imagine all the teenage boys would be like, oh, I got to get that issue of Bananas. Charlie's Angels want me. You know, I got to buy that issue. Henny Youngman is the featured comedian for this. You get some of his one-liners, the king of the one-liners. Very nice picture of Charlie's Angels there. Very nice picture. We have an article on them here. So again, if you're a fan of, you know, these shows, these actors and actresses, you want to get these magazines. We have what person working for Bananas thinks is the 10 greatest rock and roll albums of all time. So you can read what his picks are in this issue. And again, of course, there's lots of funny stuff as well as the serious stuff. We have a Steve McQueen biography. Jefferson Starship article. This I found really interesting. An article about famous hoaxes and cons from history. Like snake oil salesmen, you know. And Howard the Duck. There's an article on Howard the Duck in this issue. Quasi about the Quacker. Howard the Duck was a phenomenon in the mid-70s by Steve Gerber, and is a very, very good comic book. I've got just about every issue of Howard the Duck. Not all the originals. I got most of the originals, but a few are reprints. But I've read those, and is a great comic book, Howard the Duck. So, again, this is probably something Howard the Duck fans don't know about. That in number 9, Bananas of Charlie's Angels, you get an article on Howard the Duck. Number 10 has Starsky and Hutch on the cover. Another show I never saw. Very popular. Just do a quick flip through, see if there's anything. There's a parody of Starsky and Hutch, a TV parody, like a Mad Type Crack parody in this issue. So they only featured them occasionally at the beginning, the TV parodies and movie parodies, but eventually it became a regular feature of Bananas. Oh, reprints of Pogo are in this issue. Walt Kelly's Pogo. Very cool. Number 11. This has got to be very collectible too, I would think. This is a Bionic Woman versus Wonder Woman cover. So of course Linda Carter as Wonder Woman, and what's her name? Jamie something. That's a Bionic Woman. I know somebody's watching this video and they're just saying her name out loud right now. Let's see here. Lindsay what? So Linda Carter and Lindsay. Bear with me here. Lindsay Wagner. There we go. So it wasn't... Jamie Summers is her name in the Bionic Woman, isn't it? I think it is. Okay, so Lindsay Wagner is her real name. Okay. Both beautiful women, by the way. Linda Carter and Lindsay Wagner. So yeah, if you're a fan of them and you want an article about them and some nice pictures, you should get this issue. You really should. Now this is really funny. There's a parody of Rod McEwen's poetry called Rod McCuteness. America loves this poet of love, so they have a parody of the way he writes, and this is very funny. A practical joke catalog that's hilarious. Oh, I know there's fans of Kiss. I know they got a lot of fans. So you got some. Well, this isn't just about Kiss. It's about, well, punk bands. It says we're not punks, but it's about punk rock, which I don't think Kiss is punk rock, but it's about, edgy kind of rockers like Patti Smith, Bruce Springsteen. Well, he's not punk rock either. The Ramones, okay. So yeah. But this is the mid 70's where they're trying to define the genre, and you still get all the comics. You get a Barbara Streisand article. This is a nice poster in it too. Very nice, very nice. So again, there's another one for you. The poster's coming out there. Okay. Okay, I think that was the end of that year. So I think, no, not yet. Well, I'm not sure. I think that might have been the end of the year, but I'm not completely certain. I don't know. Anyway, issue number 12 is got Horseshack from Welcome Back Kotter on the cover. Okay, which I never watched Welcome Back Kotter either. Head of the Class is the show I love, which is the opposite of Welcome Back Kotter, because Welcome Back Kotter is about a bunch of not so smart kids, and Head of the Class is about a bunch of geniuses. And that's the show I grew up with, Head of the Class, and I absolutely loved that show. But John Travolta, of course, was on Welcome Back Kotter, and that launched his career. And I probably would have loved it, that show. If I had been older in the 70's, if I had been, if I had been old enough to watch it in the 70's, then I would have loved it, because I wasn't born until like the very end of the 70's. But anyway, there you go. I forget what his name is. I should know what his name is, but I can't remember. Horseshack, let's see. Ron Palio, right. Okay, who passed away, by the way. It's very sad. I saw him in a movie. I have a movie, actually. I've got it on DVD called Trees. I think he's in the second one, though, Trees 2, which is this really low-budget horror movie about trees, killer trees, which I know sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's a parody of Jaws. I don't know if he's in the first. I think there's Trees 1 and Trees 2. And he plays a serious role, and he's actually quite good. And it's one of his last roles was in that movie. Ron Palio. Jimmy Carter there. Of course, he was president at the time. New president. King Kong. There was a new King Kong movie out, so we get a parody. I think this is the first movie parody they did, King Kong, with Bob Taylor art. So beautiful color, Bob Taylor art. Parody of King Kong. Jack Nicholson, there's a biography of him. Okay, so in the summer of 1977, right? I think we're 77. They came out with the first Bananas yearbook. So we have the top bananas of the year, John Travolta and Farrah Fawcett Majors. So they are the two most popular stars of the time. And Bananas yearbooks are amazing. They're really great. So they're like big, thick Bananas magazines, right? So they're like double the size of a Bananas magazine. Bananas magazines are 40 pages long. And I think the yearbooks are 80 pages. So what you get in the yearbooks is you get a small section of reprints, and the rest of it is all new stuff. So you would have to order this near the end of the school year so that you'd receive it at your home during the summer. I think that's the way it worked. Because you had to order Bananas from the Scholastic Book Fair. That's the only way you could get it. I don't think it was sold on newsstands. At least it wasn't for most of its run. Maybe in the last year or two, maybe it might have been. But yeah, Bananas you'd have to. So they're not easy to find. Bananas magazines are not easy to find for that reason either, because the distribution wasn't as high as it would be with a newsstand magazine. But anyway, this has got tons of great stuff in it. It's got lots of humor articles. It's got serious articles. It's just so many great things. And, and they say you could have fun all summer long with your Bananas by, getting the Bananas yearbook. And it's just full of great stuff. So it's like Bananas. Well, it is Bananas. It's exactly like Bananas, but it's like double the Bananas, basically. And I can imagine being a kid back then, and if you got that in the mail, like I never did, but because like I said, I didn't get these till after it wasn't published anymore, but that would be such a thrill to get that in the mail during the summer. So going into 1977-1978 year, we have Paul Michael Glaser on the cover. So he's not as well known as most of the people on Bananas. I think he's the Starsky and Hutch. I think he's one of those guys, isn't he? I think that's who he is. Another crazy contents page. They still kept doing those. The contents pages got a lot less innovative later on, but in these early issues, they're just amazing. Oh, yeah, and they start for the new year. R.L. Stine introduced a feature called The Amazing Bunny Man. This was like the first attempt at doing an ongoing Fumetti feature in Bananas. And as a first attempt, it wasn't a great one. And I don't think it was very popular. It's pretty stupid. It's about a guy that turns into a bunny, or a guy in a bunny costume. And I love bunnies. I love rabbits. They're my favorite animal, actually. But this is just silly. It's not very funny. And it was dropped after a few issues. They actually printed a letter that said, "I'm so glad you got rid of the Amazing Bunny Man." Okay, so then you get scary stuff like, are werewolves real? That's a... So you're getting like scary stuff here too, long before Goosebumps, right? But of course these are, well, it's non-fiction, supposedly, right? I mean, are werewolves real? Well, But anyway, it delves into the subject, right? You Asked For It is still here. It's got a makeover now. It looks a little fancier than before, which again is a hilarious humor column. Great moments. There's again great Bob Taylor art here. This is not Bob Taylor, this part, but this type of artwork appears a lot in Bananas as well. It's by Lou Brooks. So Lou Brooks' artwork you see a lot. It was a very distinctive look to it. So again, we get lots of fun. Yeah, he is Starsky. I guess he's Starsky. Oh, and this is really interesting. All right, so this isn't... So I said 77, 78. Did I say that? Because that's where we are. We're in 77, 78. Because this is an article on Elvis. Now, here's the crazy thing about this. Elvis passed away in August of 1977. And, I was just checking something. And this article talks about him as being alive, as still being alive. So this was written just before he passed away. Which is fascinating, right? Because it's just weird to read this in 1977, and it's talking about him and his life, and they're talking like, he's still alive. Like it says, the king of rock and roll keeps rolling, despite health problems and middle age spread. So, I mean, yeah, sadly he passed away like right after this was published, or maybe right before this was published. They didn't get time to change it before this came out, because I would think this would be published probably in September of 77. So maybe they just didn't get time to change it, but that's something. That's some Elvis memorabilia there. There he is getting his haircut for the Army. And then we have a Woody Allen press conference. Woody Allen was huge at this time, because this is when he won the Academy Award for Annie Hall. And so his films became mainstream. You know, it wasn't just critics and a select group of people that like Woody Allen films. I love Woody Allen films, by the way. I think his films are brilliant. But he went into the mainstream with Annie Hall, won the Academy Award, and so, you know, he was everywhere at this time. So, yep. Yeah, these are, okay. Then we got this Granny Meatloaf's advice column. So Granny Meatloaf was sort of a fictional character that they used in Bananas, and she's supposed to be like this older person, and she gives advice, but the advice doesn't make any sense, or it's really silly advice. And that's an ongoing humor feature they have. Later on, like, she tells like stories or something like that, which are really funny. Probably written by R.L. Stine. And then we get the jokes, you know, the corny jokes. Okay, so that was the 13th issue of Bananas. And then the 14th issue of Bananas has a beautiful cover here of Jacqueline Smith, A Talk with a Real Angel. So there's another very collectible one for you Charlie's Angels fans out there. Uncle Buzzy is starting to be featured more in the magazine now. You can see him right there. So, and there's the Bunny Man up there. The Bong Show. Well, that's a parody of The Gong Show with Chuck Barris, which was very popular in the 70's, really silly show. A list of 101 things to do this winter. It's an actual, but this is like, it's a funny list. It's not serious, so. Yeah, Granny Meatloaf's advice column. So, an article on Sylvester Stallone, biography of him, and Jacqueline Smith article. Now this is Granny Meatloaf. This is the picture they always use of Granny Meatloaf. I have no idea who she really was. Maybe R.L. Stine's mother? I don't know. But they always use her picture in the magazine as Granny Meatloaf. Another Bob and Ray routine. Okay. Number 15 has Alan Alda on the cover. Because you can imagine that, well, not imagine, MASH was one of the most popular shows of the 70's. Another show I think I did watch it as a kid. I didn't like it very much. So I never got into MASH. But a lot of people love MASH. A lot of people do. They have an article on egg hockey, which is not a real sport, obviously. It's a joke sport. The Bunny Man is still in it. It features Uncle Buzzy, this issue. Jerry Lewis. Biography of Jerry Lewis. And we have a poster of Kiss in Japan in this issue. Rock group Kiss, Alan Alda article. An article on the special effects guy, Rick Baker, who I guess is Star Wars special effects guy, or designed the aliens of Star Wars, it says here. So Star Wars fans, you might want to get that Rick Baker article. And now we even have Rick. I don't know, how do you say his name? Rick Meyerowitz. He's a very popular cartoonist in National Lampoon magazine. Rick Meyerowitz, something like that. Um, he worked for Bananas as well. You know, give these cartoonists a chance to do something a little more wholesome than National Lampoon. Something on the other side of the spectrum. The comic section is now at the back. Joe's down here. Picture Uncle Buzzy. Like I say, you keep seeing the same faces if you keep reading through Bananas. Number 16 is a Three's Company cover. I used to watch Three's Company when I was a kid, and I liked it. I never got into it as an adult, though. I never went back to it, but I liked it as a kid. John Ritter there, Suzanne Summers, and Joyce DeWitt, I believe. Sean Cassidy. Oh man, that guy was popular at the time for a brief period of time. He was in the Hardy Boys, starring in that, and he had a singing career like his brother David Cassidy. I don't think he was as good of a singer as David Cassidy, but he had some records that were okay. Sean Cassidy. Another fake television magazine. Lots of great stuff. Paul McCartney article, so there again, for fans of the Beatles. Poster of Wings. So they have posters in the center of the magazine too, as well as posters inserted in the magazine, bigger posters. The Kiss comic book was published by Marvel. They have an article on that. Three's Company article. Okay. This is one of my favorite covers. Number 17. Cheryl Ladd, the Human Angel. So Cheryl Ladd joined the Charlie's Angels. Now, I said she wasn't in it from the beginning, was she? I can't remember what I said. Farrah Fawcett, Jacqueline Smith, and Kate Jackson, right? Were the originals, right? I don't know. Somebody could tell me. I think they were. And then I think Cheryl Ladd joined later. I think that's how it went. Pardon me if I'm wrong. But that's a nice cover. If TV characters had to live in the real world, written by R.L. Stine, and the artwork is by Neil Adams. Yes, that Neil Adams. So you get some famous cartoonists working for Bananas magazine. Neil Adams artwork in Bananas. Parodies of TV shows. Rick Meyerowitz again doing artwork for Bananas. I don't know how many. He probably did artwork for a lot of issues, I would guess. A nice Cheryl Ladd article. Charlie's Human Angel, it's called. Marie Osmond article. Steve Martin article. Oh, this is interesting. In the comic section, they feature a look at the Woody Allen comic strip, which most people probably don't know that there was a short-lived Woody Allen comic strip in the newspaper. Syndicated strip. Which is really weird. But it's interesting. That's how popular he was at the time, that there was a Woody Allen newspaper comic strip for a while. Number 18 features Kiss on the cover. articles on Elton John, Elvis Presley. Some funny comedy routines with the Uncle Buzzy guy here. A fake menu, dinner menu for an inn in the center of the magazine. Elvis article, Kiss article, yep, Elton John. Three Stooges are the featured comedians. Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to show you every single thing because this video will be like 5 hours long. So you'll have to track down these issues. I'm just letting you know what's in, some of them. Number 19 is a Close Encounters of the Third Kind cover. So we're into 1978 now. And now R.L. Stine premiered a new feature called The Teens of Ferret High. And what this is a humorous fumetti soap opera about the teens of a fictional high school called Ferret High. And it must have been quite popular because it ran for quite a while. And the guy that you see in this article is in a lot of them. This guy. So he's one of the stars of Bananas. He became one of the stars of Bananas. And that lady playing the mother, I think, is in a lot of them as well. So it's like they had their own stars. It goes on for a while. Usually they have these like the articles where the guy is like obnoxious and he's dating a girl and he embarrasses her by doing all these stupid things like taking his shirt off when he goes to her house to meet her mother, and maybe makes rude noises with his armpit or something like that. It's funnier than it sounds, and it sounds just like gross out humor, but it's funnier than, they don't go too far with it or anything. It's not like like American Pie stuff or anything like that. It's a lot more wholesome. So yeah, we have some fake coupons which are really funny. You could have cut these out and fooled your folks with them. They're hilarious coupons too, very funny. Granny Meatloaf is back. There's a poster for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's a UFOs article. Sean Cassidy article. Okay, so Bananas 20. Bananas 20 is the last issue for this year, last regular issue, and you can see it features Gilda Radner on the cover from Saturday Night. Of course, this was in the original cast of Saturday Night, was in the show. Well, Chevy Chase had left by this time, but Bill Murray had joined. But you had John Belushi and Gilda Radner, Lorraine Newman, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Dan Aykroyd, all those people. And it was really, 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 really popular back then. And she played this character that was on the news, Gilda Radner, that was always mishearing things all the time. And she'd go on a rant about something based on, something she thought she heard that she didn't actually hear. And then, the news anchor would always say, that's not what I said this. And then she'd say, oh, never mind. And that's what this cover is referencing. See, it says Saturday Night Live meets bananas, not eats bananas. So, never mind. It says that. There's a fun parody of the Johnny Carson show. There's a Star Wars joke book. A bunch of Star Wars jokes. Oh, this summer camp guide, they reprinted this a few times later. It's really funny. These are all fake summer camps that are just hilarious. Guide to Taking Notes, which is not serious. Again, it's a funny one. John Travolta article. And then we have a poster of Saturday Night Fever in the middle. We have a Saturday Night Live article. There's a Beach Boys article, a biography of the Beach Boys. Pogo comic strips again. And a rubber chicken poster. This has the poster still in it. That's part of the poster there. It's a full like wall poster that you could take out of the magazine and put on your wall. With a rubber chicken poster on your wall. So the 1978 yearbook had Charlie's Angels on the cover. I think Charlie's Angels were on the cover more than anybody, I think. Or Darth Vader there. I've never seen Star Wars. I've never seen any Star Wars movie. I've never really been interested in it. I mean, I've read all about it. I've read parodies of it in my magazines, obviously. You know, I have an idea what the story is. It's not my type of thing. I'm not into science fiction. But, I mean, people love it, obviously, Star Wars. It's still, today, they still have all these spin-offs of it. So, I mean, it was a phenomenon. It just changed movies. It changed cinema. Not that I care, but, you know, it's it's not my type of movie. It's just not my type of movie. You know, to each his own. But I'm not into, and what I mean by that is, like, not that I care, is because it gave way to all these special effects laden movies, right? I mean, so many movies are like huge special effects, blockbusters, you know, billions of dollars, and it's like, I don't know, I'm never interested in that. It doesn't interest me at all. Like, I'm interested in, like, smaller movies just about humans, like people going about their lives, and, you know, stories like, you know, based in reality and stuff like that. Or comedy movies. I like comedy movies. That's my type of thing. You know, just slice of life movies and comedy movies. That's more my type of thing. So not blockbusters and action movies and stuff like that. I'm not into that kind of stuff, which I know puts me in the minority, and that's fine. It's the way it is. Like I said, to each his own. But anyway, Charlie's Angels, again on the cover, and a fantastic yearbook, just packed with. See, I'll just show you here. It's packed with like articles. So I recommend that. Bananas 21, I think we're at. Yeah, number 21. So we're going to the 1978-1979 year. Bee Gees. Of course, the Bee Gees with their Staying Alive album or song or whatever were really, really popular at this time. Granny Meatloaf is back. We have these crazy contents pages. Still going. Bananas is still in full color. The Teens of Ferret High is back. It stars that same guy again, as you can see, going out with another girl, taking her out to a restaurant in this edition. And again, this is a funny article, not a serious soap opera. What Charlie's Angels has done to TV. So this is like if Charlie's Angels took over other shows, or like the new Hulk show, Incredible Hulk, or Battlestar Galactica, you know, things like that. And the artwork here is by Sam Viviano, who I mentioned earlier was became the art director for Mad Magazine later on, worked for Mad, but he used to work for Bananas back in the 70s and 80s, and he is amazing. He's one of my favorite humor magazine artists. So he did some beautiful, absolutely beautiful full color art for Bananas that gets even better as it goes on. Comic section now features the full page of Joe. They'll have a full page of Joe in every issue. Pig Hollow is a new comic they have, which is art is by Bob Taylor. And it's a favorite in the Bananas. It runs for a long, long time. Very corny. Cat and Nip is also one that runs for a long time by Diane Dawson. And Fumbles by Bruce Day. The art is by these people. I have a feeling that R.L. Stine wrote them, but it doesn't say who wrote them. Joe is done by, like I said, is done by John Holstrom, who I'm pretty sure wrote it as well as drew it, I would guess. Anyway. Oh yeah, and then we have the National Banana in the middle of the magazine, which is a parody of like National Enquirer. There's a subscription insert in the middle there. But that becomes a recurring feature. Oh, I found this really interesting. There's an article of the Bee Gees here. But they started a feature that ran for a couple of years in Bananas. I wish it had run longer because I found it very interesting. It's called Opinion Line. And so they would present a topic, and then as a reader, you could write in your opinion, and they might print it in a future issue. So they say, well, what do you think about this? Do you agree with it or not? So in this article, the first topic is, are the Elvis imitators a disgrace? So they tell you about Elvis imitators. This is right at the beginning of Elvis imitation becoming a widespread thing, right? Just after he died. So are they saluting his memory, or is it disrespectful? Or are they just capitalizing on his memory? That's what they're dealing with here. Oh, they got opinions on Kiss, so I guess they did ask opinions on something earlier. So do you think Kiss is, a good band, or are they a bad, influence, or are they harmless? Basically that sort of thing. And they get young people writing in with their opinions. There's an article on Grease, the new movie Grease. It's a really slick flick, as you can see. That's a movie I never really cared for. I didn't think it was authentic enough in the way they presented the 50s. For one thing, the songs didn't sound like 50s songs to me. They sounded like 70s versions of 50s songs. So it didn't ring quite true to me. I mean, I guess it was a good movie, I guess. It's a good musical. It's got I like the song. I do like the songs in it. But I just didn't feel they were 50s authentic enough. Just something seemed more 70s to me, like 70s version of the 50s, like I said. Even the way the movie looked, I don't know. Something about it. But there's a Grease poster in this issue. I'll show you. This poster is loose, so I'll show you what a full poster looks like. I like the fact that they named the school after Bobby Rydell High, because he's one of my favorite singers of the 60s. The poster's coming apart, but it's a big poster, as you can see, of the cast of Grease. And then at the back of the magazine, they have Uncle Buzzy's joke page with that guy again. And that's a regular feature at the back of all the Bananas now. Number 22 has Suzanne Summers from Three's Company, who just passed away recently, sadly. A great Fantasy Island parody by Sam Viviano in this issue. Great artwork. Of course, written by probably R.L. Stine. Bananas 23. Now, Project UFO, this issue was hard to find. Probably because it didn't sell as well. Project UFO was not a successful television series. After Star Wars came out, as I said, it had a big influence over the media. You know, you had a lot of imitations coming out, or things that were trying to be like Star Wars, like Battlestar Galactica, and Project UFO. I'm not sure if it was one of those or not, but it was still a space themed thing, and so it was influenced by Star Wars in that way because everybody was space crazy in the late 70's. So you know, you got this robot thing on the cover. But yeah, it wasn't very successful. This is a great contents page again. Very nostalgic looking. There's Granny Meatloaf with her phony advice column there. This was a recurring feature, the Bananas Home Handyman, which is a funny thing by art by Bob Taylor. Very funny. The Joe's comics are getting better and better. Poster of Queen in the middle of this one. Freddie Mercury and Queen. As you can see, there's the two halves of it. It's got the subscription thing in the middle of the magazine. Because they are now publishing a magazine called Wow, which was for younger kids than Dynamite was. So they're trying to cover all the age groups. Scholastic. Okay. I'm hoping I'm giving you a good enough look at the magazine, giving you an idea of why it's really good and it's collectible for humor magazine fans and for pop culture fans. Number 24, the Farrah Fawcett cover. National Banana, Teens of Ferret High, you know, the usual things I've been showing you. There's a very nice Farrah Fawcett poster in the middle. Then there's an article, a biography of her. An opinion line in this article, I think I skipped some of them, but I'm not going to read all of them. It says, there was Fabian, Frankie Avalon, Bobby Sherman, and David Cassidy. Will Sean Cassidy be forgotten too? So will he go the way of all the other teen idols? That's the opinion line. And it's fun because we know, obviously, that he did fade out pretty quickly. We know that, and to read people's opinions, teenagers' opinions, it's really fascinating. It's like, you know, some people say, no, he'll be around forever. He's going to be fantastic or whatever. And then other people say, nah, he's going to be forgotten, or, you know. Of course, I don't think Frankie Avalon was really all that forgotten. I mean, he had a lot of longevity, that guy. He made a lot of comebacks. Bobby Sherman. I think they're good singers. Like I don't think Fabian's a good singer. I don't think he could ever really sing. But I'm sure that, you know, he probably realized that too. He tried to take singing lessons. He just couldn't sing very well. But he's still out there singing. So, I mean, he's made a career out of, you know, being a teen idol. Frankie Avalon is actually a really good singer. Bobby Sherman, I think he was a good singer. I like Bobby Sherman. I like his songs like Julie, Do You Love Me? Little Woman, you know, songs like that. La La La, If I Had You. Those are great songs. And he became a police officer, I think, or emergency technician, or a park ranger, one of those things later on. And David Cassidy was a good singer too. He did a lot of good songs with the Partridge Family. Talked about that. And like I said, there were a few Sean Cassidy records that, you know, I thought were okay. A disco Donna Summer article. She was really popular. This was like the height of disco. at this time. 1979-1980 calendar in this issue. Now this one's the only issue that I'm missing the cover of. I have a coverless copy of it. It's number 25, so this is not the cover. The cover of it has a bunch of comedians of the time, like John Belushi and Robin Williams there. I think Andy Kaufman might be on the cover. And so this is a special issue highlighting the top hip comedians of 1979. Are we in now? So, Steve Martin, the new comedy. So we get, like, Robin Williams, this new young comedian from Mork from Ork, Mork and Mindy. You got Steve Martin. This is before he was a movie comedian. It was just before The Jerk came out, which made him a movie comedian. He was on SNL a lot, stand-up. Billy Crystal, he was on Soap at the time, which was a very funny show. Andy Kaufman, of course. I've always been fascinated by Andy. He's a very, very funny, hilarious, experimental comedian who would do anything to get a laugh, or to not get a laugh, He was on Taxi, of course. It's a great show, great sitcom. That's a show I have watched. I've seen every episode of that. And it's a fantastic show, Taxi. John Belushi, I think he was probably the funniest guy on SNL back in the 70s from the original cast. I think John Belushi's quite funny. I'm more familiar with him, strangely enough, through the National Lampoon Radio Hour, which he was absolutely hilarious on. Of course, he's in Animal House. So you get like a bunch of jokes, you get the comics, you get a Battlestar Galactica poster. So many things. So it's not all comedy, that issue. It's just the first half of it is a special comedy section. Then we have issue number 26. That was 25, right? We have with Christopher Reeve and Dolly Parton, Superman and Superwoman on the cover. She didn't play Superwoman. She just is a Superwoman. The Teens of Ferret High continues with that. I think that's the same guy again. So you can see he's like the male lead of the male star of Bananas, I guess you say, besides the Uncle Buzzy guy starring in this. Let's see. Some reprints of Shoe, which is a comic strip that you really don't hear about very often. But it was popular for quite a while in newspapers. Some people don't think it's funny at all. I think it's okay. I think it's alright. The Joe comic there, these bananas are worth getting just for the Joe page. The Joe pages are so funny. Big Dolly Parton article in this issue. Lots of pictures of her. Christopher Reeve, making of Superman. Number 27. I love this cover too. I like the fawns. I just like the fawns. Like, hey, I like the idea of the fawns. Hey. So, another Happy Days cover. You got Richie Cunningham and the Fonz, Arthur Fonzarelli there. Henry Winkler and Ron Howard, before Ron Howard was a director. Still on Happy Days there. So you got a whole history of Happy Days in this issue, which I found really neat. And then a Happy Days trivia test, and then a parody of Happy Days by R.L. Stine and Sam Viviano. Happy Prehistoric Days. So they're imagining, what if Happy Days wasn't set in the 50s? What if it was set in caveman prehistoric times instead? This issue has a 50s theme to it, which I like, because the 1950s is one of my favorite decades. So then you get a section of jokes from the 50s, actual jokes. We have the news of the 50s. Oh, and then this is really interesting. They started printing these, who did the art for this? They started printing these comic stories which weren't humor, but they're written by R.L. Stine. Well, actually, they are humorous, but I don't know. Is this Steve Bissett that did the artwork here? I can't read that signature. But take a look at this artwork. Sure, it was a famous comic artist that did this artwork. And you can see they started printing these stories like this. Like I say, you get some famous artists showing up in Bananas. There's a Jacqueline Smith poster there. Very nice. Ooh, that's a lovely picture. Lovely poster of Jacqueline Smith there with her dog. You can see. In the middle of the magazine. Oh, nice. Look at these pictures here. More pictures of Jacqueline Smith. See, they really like Charlie's Angels. In Bananas. Like, everybody likes Charlie's Angels, right? Galactica versus Star Wars. Oh, that's great. So, opinion line features, what do you think is better? Battlestar Galactica or Star Wars? I think we know who won that. But they say, is Battlestar Galactica merely a disappointing ripoff of Star Wars, or is it a good science fiction epic in its own right? So they're not saying, is it better? They're saying, is it just a ripoff, or does it have its own value? Great Joe comic strip. The What's Happening column is bigger now, so that like the gossip column and just the news column of what's going on in the entertainment industry, which is always fun to read. A real snapshot of the time. This is really the heyday of Bananas, I would say. This is when the magazine was at its peak. Number 28, I think we're at. Number 28. A few of these are falling apart, like you see, like this one. Cheryl Tiegs. She's a famous model of the time. She's on the cover. And the usual things we have in that issue. Let's move on. So, okay. And that was the last issue of the year. So the 1979 Bananas Yearbook has Robin Williams. Mork and Mindy was huge, especially with kids and teenagers. Steve Martin, Olivia Newton-John poster inside. Filled with wonderful stuff again. Great Bananas yearbook. Even if you don't have the regular issues of Bananas, it's fun just to have the yearbooks, you know. And they started, so the two earlier yearbooks were not numbered. But they started including the numbering of the yearbooks in the regular series of Bananas. So they continue the numbering from the last regular issue. So this is number 29 of Bananas. So, yeah, the other ones were just the 77 and 78 yearbooks. They didn't have a number. Oh, something else I want to show you. Okay. Now you can't really see her that well here. But this girl that stars in this description ad for Bananas at the back here, she will become the female star of Bananas. Like that guy was like the male star. She becomes the female star, and she starts appearing like all the time in Bananas. And eventually she gets her own comic, like Fumetti strip, which replaces the Teens of Ferret High, and it's called Christy Kramer and Her Mom, and she plays Christy Kramer in it. So she's another face that you'll see a lot in Bananas. And around this time, so I'm just going to call her Christy Kramer because that's the character she played in Bananas later on. Around this time, Bananas paperback came out called Going Out, Going Steady, Going Bananas, the Bananas Dating Guide by Jovial Bob Stine. So this is by R.L. Stine. And this is their best paperback, in my opinion. This is really, really funny. So yes, Bananas Magazine had paperbacks as well as regular issues. So this is what you can imagine. It's a hilarious teenage dating guide. And it's just got tons of funny things in it. You know, 42 imaginative ideas for unusual dates. The perfect movie date, a guide to blind date talk. What can be done about shyness. but it's not serious, right? This is all funny. It's by R.L. Stine. It's hilarious stuff. 10 surefire conversation starters. So if Matt or Cracked had done a dating guide, it'd be like this, but with R.L. Stine's particular brand of unusual humor. And there's lots of photos in this. There's lots of color photos and black and white photos. And the Christy Kramer girl stars in a ongoing story in this comic where she goes out with this boy. So throughout the course of the comic, like, she's having her first date with this boy, you see. There she is there. And I think that's the guy, isn't it? Is that the guy or is that a different guy? Well, this guy shows up all the time too. I don't know if it's the same guy that stars in Bananas or not, but he shows up in Bananas all the time too. So she goes on a date with this guy, and throughout the course of the book, they go back to the date to show you how it's going, and then you see how it ends up at the end, and it's really funny. So it's just a hilarious little paperback book. While I'm on the subject, let me show you the other Bananas paperback books I have. So there's a Bananas joke book, which is just, this is all like old jokes and corny jokes and things, but you know, some of these jokes are quite funny still today. So, you know, it's jokes with some, you know, drawings. So that's fun. It's fun to read. This is another really good one, the Bananas Bee Guide to School Survival. I had this when I was in high school and I absolutely loved it. So it's got Bob Taylor art on the front. It's by Pat and Joe Arthur, and they wrote a lot for Bananas as well. So this book is a guide to like everything you need to know about high school, basically, if you're in high school. Like about study hall, coping with the cafeteria, existing with substitutes, lockers, tests, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I just, you know, when I was in high school, I just thought this is great because I could relate with everything in it. I mean, everybody's been through high school. They can relate with this, right? So it's about surviving high school in a hilarious way. So this is a fun, very fun book. So I say even teenagers today, you know, could track down these books and, you know, still enjoy them. As well as adults, you know, if you're nostalgic for, you know, for the past, you know, it's still fun to read these things. And I remember, I think, in this book there was like a fake hall pass printed. Yes, here it is. So the last page had a fake hall pass. And the copy I had as a teenager, I cut it out, and I actually gave it to a teacher. And they weren't fooled by it, but he said to me, he said, "Where did you get that?" And it was really funny. So here we have You Know You're Really in Love When. Typical, you know, humor magazine kind of thing. So it's like, you know you're really in love when, you know, you whatever, you do this, you do that, you know, funny. This is funny though. They're all funny. And then the back of it's like, the other side of you, it's like a flip book. It's like, it says, you know it's time to break up when. Okay, so you're in love when, it's time to break up when. Okay, two sides of that. Then we have the Bananas Book of Photo Funnies, which is all like, it's like the Cracked Lens. If you know Cracked Magazine, and they print pictures, movie stills with humorous captions, this whole book is that. Photo Funnies, strangely enough, is what they called the Fumettis in National Lampoon. But believe me, these are not like those. If you know Photo Funnies in National Lampoon, you'll know what I'm talking about. No, these are like movie stills and things like that with humorous captions. You know, just like the Cracked Lens, basically. It's like a whole book of the Elsa Lancaster there. Whole book of them. And, you know, they're pretty funny. By R.L. Stine. And then I have the Bananas Dating Test, which is another, like I say, it's a magazine aimed at teenagers, of course, as is Mad Magazine, you know. So it deals with a lot of things that teenagers would be going through, like, you know, dating, things like that. I mean, older people go through dating too, obviously. I say go through it like it's a trial. Well, for sometimes it is, right? Of course, but you know, just a fake test and things you like. What do you know about your date and stuff like that? It's okay. It wasn't as funny as the first paperback, but or the school survival one, but it was okay. So yeah, so a bunch of Bananas paperbacks. There's a few others too that I don't have. Well, there's one of it, a collection of It Never Fails, which is that feature that's on the back of Bananas magazine, but I didn't really want that. I think it was interesting enough. Those are the ones I wanted. Okay, there's not very many others. That's most of them. Okay, so 1979, 1980 year. So we're in the height of disco now. We have Donna Summer on the cover and Deborah Harry from Blondie. I like Blondie. I like a lot of the songs that Blondie did. I'm mostly into older music, from the 50s and 60s. I do like some 70s and 80s stuff, though, and I think Blondie is actually a band I really like. Some of their songs are really good. Heart of Glass is pretty good. Call Me is a great song, One Way or Another. There are others too I can't think of right now. Here's Looking at You, that's an obscure one I really like that they did. Dreaming, that was a great one that they did. Picture This, I think is the name of another song that I really like. Sunday Girl. Oh, they had a lot of great songs, Blondie. So now at the beginning of the magazine, they start featuring something called You Don't Say, which is quotes from celebrities of the time. So we have John Belushi, the girl from Mork and Mindy, Pam Dauber, and Jeff Conaway from Taxi. Then they have interviews with celebrities. Now, Deborah Harry talks to Bananas. Questions and answers about, or Donna Summer answers your questions. Now, yeah, this is the way Bananas look now. So they have a new format. As you can see, the What's Happening column, the gossip column is now on the side. They have this guy, the Mass Music Man, who answers questions about bands and singers of the time. And then the contents page starts to look like this. So it's not as innovative, as you can see. It's more uniform from issue to issue. Lots of fun humor magazine articles like Isn't It Time That? Isn't it time that Gary Coleman admitted that he's actually 34 years old? Isn't it time that Mindy got something funny to say on Mork and Mindy? Isn't it time that Christy McNichol got some pimples? Things like that. The Teenage Hall of Shame is it's a feature they have where they feature, I don't know how to say, kind of, there's this student in every class, the one that, Claire is the one who actually enjoys diagramming sentences. She's the one student in the class that likes doing that, There's always the one student that asks about, or is there any homework tonight? That kind of thing. Oh, and then they started featuring this, the Beast News. And this was a recurring feature I didn't really like that much, but it must have been very popular. So it's like Bob Taylor art. The art's great, but it's like, you're a beast if you do these things. So it's just like really, this is like gross out, obnoxious kind of behavior stuff. Belching loudly, throwing food on people, that kind of thing. It's not really that funny. The Teens of Ferret High continues. You can see. Which is a popular, funny Fumetti feature. The comic section, which is really like amazing now. I mean, look at that. Look at that Joe strip there. That is incredible. I mean, and if you read it, it's even better because it's really funny, like I keep saying. Great, beautiful color comics, though. It Never Fails. Yeah, I'll talk about It Never Fails already. But the artwork is now by Bill Basso, I believe. So they have a different artist doing it. Article about the Star Trek, Superman, Star Wars. This was another thing I really liked. So they had this ongoing feature called Video World where they talk about new innovations in technology of the time, dealing with video games and, you know, laser discs, things like that. So yeah, this one's on video games. Early video games, 1979. So that's really cool. I found this one really interesting too. Is an article about the movie The Warriors, which was very controversial at the time because of the violence in it. So they have an opinion section about that if you think that it could incite violence, the movie. Here's the outcome of the Star Wars versus Battlestar Galactica poll they took. Then they had a feature called Amazing Tales, Dan Brannigan of the Space Marines, which is like those old-fashioned kind of serials. And I didn't like that at all. So that was really lame. A great back cover by Sam Viviano, featuring lots of the biggest celebrities of the time. Kiss, Laverne and Shirley, Steve Martin, John Belushi, Donna Summer, Suzanne Summers, Christopher Reeve, Dolly Parton, Burt Reynolds, Jimmy Carter, he's the president, of course, Henry Winkler, Walter Cronkite, Miss Piggy, Gary Coleman, Hervé Villachez, Ed Asner, and Christy McNichol, I think. Number 31 has Shelley Hack on the cover. She took over on Charlie's Angels. This is when they were starting to lose their ratings, I would say. I don't think she was as successful on the show as the earlier Angels were. She replaced Kate Jackson, as you can see. I mean, it's always hard replacing fan favorites on a show. Just ask the cast of Saturday Night in 1980. That's a whole other story. So the movie and TV parodies get more elaborate now. So Sam Viviano illustrated this parody of the movie Alien. Incredible artwork. Okay. So, yeah. They had an article about Jerry Lewis in that issue about his problems at the time with being addicted to painkillers and stuff like that. And I found that very interesting too, is because he hurt his back when he was performing, when he did a pratfall, and he had to be on painkillers for most of the rest of his life, I think, Jerry Lewis. So he dealt with a lot of pain, you know, which not everybody knows about. And so there's an article about that. Issue 32 has Eric Estrada on the cover from Chips, another show I never watched. But he was very, very popular. That show was very popular. I think this guy in Teens of Ferret High is a different guy than the other one. So I think he took over from the other guy. And he became the star of their photo feature. And he's Uncle Buzzy's in it sometimes in their photo feature. He's sneezing a lot here. Yeah, I think he's like the principal at the high school. Something like that. Yeah, he's allergic to cabbage or something, and he's got an office full of cabbage. pretty funny. Parody of MASH called Bash. Sam Viviano artwork. Now, every single issue now features a really beautifully illustrated movie or TV parody. So, I mean, I'm not going to show you, I don't think I'm going to show you every single one, but just so you know. At the heyday of Bananas, you get a lot of great stuff. Dukes of Hazzard poster. That was another popular show. She's very attractive, too. Catherine Bach, I think her name is. She played Daisy Duke in Dukes of Hazzard. I never watched that either, but it was really popular. A lot of things I haven't watched, really. Laser Discs, article on that. Number 33 is a Star Trek cover. So you Star Trek fans will want to get a copy of this. I've never watched Star Trek either. Big surprise, since I said that, I'm not into sci-fi. But it seems like it's an interesting show. Intelligent, show. There's a Howard Hessman question here. A Howard Hessman article, like Dr. Johnny Fever answers your questions. He was on WKRP in Cincinnati at the time. I never saw that show. I've heard it's, so many people have told me I should watch it, and they're probably right. Because it's, the writers of the show are the same guys that wrote Growing Pains later on, which is one of my favorite sitcoms ever. So I can imagine WKRP is probably a hilarious show. And then Head of the Class is one of my absolute favorite sitcoms, and Howard Hessman starred in that as Charlie Moore, the teacher. So I probably would like WKRP. Steve Martin article. A Cheap Trick poster in the middle. Steve Martin poster. Article about the early days of television, which was really neat. Milton Berle and all of them. Okay. And just remember again, like, obviously I don't have time to show you every single, thing in these issues. There's lots of funny stuff and lots of curiosities in each issue, and other things, serious stuff as well. So just be aware of that. There's lots of great stuff in Bananas. Number 34, John Belushi, Mork and Mindy, Rock and Roll Tragedies. Now this is before John Belushi passed away, so they didn't know he was going to become another tragedy. Yeah, this is, so John Belushi answers your question. So they interviewed John Belushi in this issue. I guess he was still on, this must have been at the end of his reign on Saturday Night. This must be, I think this is 1980. And that's when he left the show, right? That's when the original cast left, the whole cast. Great Mork and Mindy satire. Again, I like this too because it's in color, and Maggie didn't get the parodies in color. Of course, I love all the black and white humor magazines. Don't get me wrong. I've got, most of my comics and magazines are in black and white, so I love, black and white, but color is always a great bonus to me. So here's another Teens Affair at High where the girl, Christy Kramer girl's going out with the guy that's always in it. So the two stars of Bananas here. You can see. Rock and Roll Tragedy. This is a good article. So it's about Buddy Holly and Jim Croce. I'm not sure if that's how you say his name. Janis Joplin. The Rolling Stones guy, Brian Jones. Elvis, of course. There's an article about the Lone Ranger, about Clayton Moore. Because at the time, I believe Clayton Moore did not own the rights to the Lone Ranger character, but he wanted to tour as the Lone Ranger because that's all he was known for. So he was like appearing at shopping malls and places like that. But they said, "Oh, you can't be the Lone Ranger," I think, or I forget. They talk about it in this article. So he'd go around like with a mask on, but like a different type of mask. You know, like just hoping you get by the copyright by doing that. Yeah, here it says Clayton Moore as he looks today. Since the judge ruled he could no longer wear the black mask of the Lone Ranger, he makes his personal appearances wearing large sunglasses. Yeah, it's kind of sad in a way. I mean, that was his whole career, was playing the Lone Ranger, and it's kind of sad that they wouldn't let him wear the mask. You know, I'm not sure what happened with that later on, but it's interesting. It's very interesting to read about. So there's an article about that in there. Number 35 is about the new bands, the new rock music of the time, the Knack. The Knack were sort of popular for what, like a year or two, and then they kind of just faded out. I think they're the ones that did that My Sharona song. That is that their only big hit? I don't know, I'm not sure. It might be. The Cars, Foreigner, Cheap Trick, Supertramp, Styx. It's not my type of music, but if you're a fan of that type of music, you want to get this issue, as they got big articles on these people. Like, don't knock the Knack. What I thought was really neat is that they featured someone who is one of my favorite singers in this article, Rachel Sweet. Now, Rachel Sweet is not very well known at all, but she had a very promising career ahead of her at the time, and she did about 4 or 5 record albums. Amazing singer, but she could never really find her niche. So she'd go from country music to rock music to I don't know, pop music, different types of music. But she was an amazing singer, absolutely amazing singer. And I've got all her albums. Again, there she is. But she never really made it big. She did she did Shadows of the Night. If you ever heard the song Shadows of the Night by Pat Benatar, she did a version of that before Pat Benatar, which I've posted on one of my channels. So you can hear her version of it, Rachel Sweet's, and I love it. I think it's better than Pat Benatar's version. Pat's was fine, but I think she should have had the huge hit with it, and she just didn't. Like her one of her only hits was a remake of Everlasting Love, which so many singers have done, that she did as a duet with Rex Smith, who was a heartthrob guy of the time. But Rachel Sweet did become successful, not as much as a singer, although she really, really tried, had a lot of great records. But she became, later on, she did, for a while she did voices. She did voiceovers, or not voiceovers, but a voice actress she was. Like, she did Barbie. She did a voice of Barbie, like on an album, maybe I don't know if it was in the cartoon or not. I don't know. But she did Crybaby, the movie Crybaby, which is one of my favorite movies, a John Waters movie, starring Johnny Depp and Amy Locane. She did the voice of Amy Locane in that movie, so she sings all her songs in the movie, and that's just fantastic, And then later on, Rachel Sweet became even more successful as a writer and a producer of television shows. So she was a writer and producer on the George Lopez Show, which was one of the only sitcoms I like from the 2000s. That is a hilarious show, the George Lopez Show, just great. And then she was a writer on Hot in Cleveland, which I've never seen. And then she was a writer for a while on Two Broke Girls, which is a terrible sitcom starring Kat Dennings. I've seen every episode of it. And that's only because I like Kat Dennings a lot. But I didn't like the show, though. And, anyway, Rachel Sweet didn't stay as a writer on the show. I don't think she gelled well with the other writers, probably because the other writers were terrible. But anyway, we won't get into all of that, right? I'm a big fan of Rachel Sweet. I think she was a wonderful singer, a great singer, and probably a really good writer too. Right? I mean, George Lopez was a great show, you know. And also, she had a show called The Sweet Life on the Comedy Channel in the early days of the Comedy Channel, back in the late 80s or early 90s, which I never saw because I didn't get the Comedy Channel here in Canada. So we have lots of articles on all these bands. We have a great Rocky parody. Beautifully illustrated. Of course, they're all beautifully illustrated. Sam Viviano artwork, so I mean, it's going to be beautifully illustrated, you know. Oh, there's a 1941 poster in this one. In the middle, John Belushi. That's a movie that didn't do that well. Steven Spielberg comedy movie. Didn't do that well. I've seen it and I can't remember anything about it. So that says something right there. More Teens Affair at High. The Beast stuff I talked about. Sha Na Na. Article on Sha Na Na. That they were popular. They had a TV show at the time. The Bowery Boys. An article about them. So you get article about older things as well. You know, retro things at the time. They were retro at the time, even is what I mean. Ha! Okay. Number 36 is a Willie Ames cover. Ha! This is from the time when Willie Ames was a heartthrob guy. And all the girls liked Willie Ames. He was on a show called 8 is Enough, which I never watched. But yeah. It's funny to think of him as a heartthrob guy for girls, because he played Buddy Lembeck on Charles in Charge, where he played a real goofball on that show. 37. Was that 36 then? Okay, 37. Dukes of Hazzard. Which I've never seen, I mentioned that already. There's a BJ and the Bear poster in there, which I've never seen. Then the Bananas Yearbook for 1980. A good look at that. Or a bit of a look at that. I'm just going to try to speed up a bit. That was 38. Number 39. Bo Derek and Bo Duke. You know, that's not his real name. John Schneider, I think, is his real name. Bo Derek was in the movie 10 with Dudley Moore, which is a really, really popular movie. So she was a big sex symbol of the time, Bo Derek. Dukes of Hazzard, parody by Sam Viviano and R.L. Stine, I think. Well, it says by Megan Stine and H. William Stine. So I don't know if they're relatives of his or he's just using other names. You know, just to... Sometimes when humor writers would write a lot of a magazine, they would start using pseudonyms, so it looked like they weren't writing the whole magazine. But they could actually be relatives of his. Continuous Adventures of the Teens at Fair High. Weird Unsolved Mysteries continues. They also had a feature now called Horror Classics, which are horror stories, which is pretty scary stuff. And now you're getting, in the issues, they ramped up the, you get a movie satire and a TV satire. So you get in Tractor Mad magazine. So this one is a parody of That's Incredible or Real People, which is like a That's Incredible type show of the time. The artwork here is by Samuel B. Whitehead, who also worked for Crack Magazine. He's also a great artist. Number 40 is got Dallas on the cover. Which I've never seen. But it was extremely popular. The whole Who Shot JR thing was just enormously popular then. We're up to 1980-81 we're going into now. So there's a Dallas parody in this issue. It's really funny. And Battle of the Network Stars. Remember those shows? Got a parody of those in this issue. Samuel Whitehead art, and the Dallas artwork is by Sam Viviano. Number 41, Michael Jackson. This is before Michael Jackson was known as the king of pop, but this is like, I mean, he was really popular, but he wasn't at the unbelievable legend status that he got to a bit later in the 80s, like in the mid-80s. This is before Thriller. So Michael Jackson cover, 1980. Great Three's Company parody. Absolutely great parody of Three's Company. A lot of these teens of Ferret High are about going on dates or meeting the parents. And again, there's the same two people, the same girl and guy starring in it. Uncle Buzzy is the father in this one. We have a gift catalog of fake gifts, hilarious fake gifts. And they started printing these, this is interesting. They started printing these short stories, like humorous short stories, text stories, and they'd have like a picture. There's the Uncle Buzzy guy. Now this is interesting because this girl here, she looks just like, to me anyway, if you can see her, she looks just like Diane Franklin is her name, I think. I don't know if that's her or not. But the girl that was in the movie The Last American Virgin, she's also in an episode of Charles in Charge as well, playing a foreign exchange student. But that movie, The Last American Virgin, has like a cult following, and she starred in that movie. Oh, and I think she starred, I'm almost positive she starred in that movie. And a movie called Better Off Dead, which is an absolutely hilarious 80s comedy with John Cusack. Yeah, John Cusack. And she starred in that. Diane Franklin, I think is her name. And yeah, she has quite a following because she was in those two movies. So that looked like her. I don't know if that was her or not, but you can write in your comments if you think that is her, because they don't tell you who that was. They don't have names for any of the models. They don't say who they actually are in the magazine. Michael Jackson article. They had like what's going to be happening this summer, so they feature like a whole bunch of things that you can look forward to in the summer, like real stuff, you know, going on in pop culture. It's really cool. Okay, number 42. This issue was the hardest issue to find for me of Bananas. This issue rarely ever shows up anywhere. And the first time I saw it on eBay, I was able to get this copy. Because it never... I used to order from eBay back when the shipping didn't cost as much to Canada like it does now. And when I had, you know, an income to do that with, I used to order from eBay back a long time ago. I don't do it anymore. I don't order online anymore. Like I said, shipping costs of Canada are way too high now. But I did manage to get this on eBay. And that's how I completed my Bananas collection, was through eBay, by the way. I got most of these from eBay auctions. But it's a Brooke Shields one. Yeah, this was the hardest issue to find of Bananas. Number 42 with Brooke Shields. I don't know why it's the hardest one to find. The Bananas logo is smaller. It must have been a popular issue, because I could imagine all the boys at the time would have been ordering this, because she was extremely popular. She was the most popular model, like teenage model at the time, Brooke Shields. So I would think it would have been a very popular issue back then. We have a Barney Miller parody. And this is in great condition, this copy. There's a Brooke Shields poster. Maybe that's why, because like there's a Brooke Shields poster in the middle here. So maybe, you know, people just cut up the magazine and they didn't keep it. Like they just cut the pictures out and everything. And there's an article about different models at the time that were trying to make it in the industry. Now, I haven't heard of them, so I guess they didn't make it. But one of them did. This one here, Lori Loughlin. I know I've seen her in like a famous sitcom. Is she in Full House or something like that? And this is when she'd be starting out. I don't know. Is she Touched by an Angel? Full House? I know those are... Touched by an Angel is not a sitcom, but she's in something. Isn't this... I don't know. Like, you could tell me in the comments if you know who she is. I know I've seen her face. I know that. So she did make it, obviously. The other ones I haven't heard of. But it's very interesting. Blind date article. Everything's interesting in Bananas. I mean, it's such a variety magazine. There's so much variety in it, which is a lot of fun. Bananas 43, Dallas cover with I know her name. Larry Hagman, of course, is JR, and the girl, she's really cute. I can't remember her name. This girl that was on Dallas. She was popular. I mean, everybody was popular on Dallas. It was such a popular show. I can't remember her name. But anyway, I mean, somebody will tell me in the comments. How to wash your car. Charlene Tilton. Well, you don't have to tell me because they got a big feature on her right here. Charlene Tilton. So they have feature on her, and there's a feature on Larry Hagman as well. And then you get a Billy Joel poster. Uptown Girl's a good song. I like that song. And another like doo-wop type song he does that I really like. The Longest Time or something like that. I can't remember. You get the Weird Unsolved Mysteries. More movie and TV parodies. And then they published a standalone book. A whole book of TV parodies from Bananas magazine. So Bananas looks at TV. So this is all... Oh, it's got like their TV guide parody as well. So it's not just the movie and TV satires, but it's other TV parody things too. TV themed articles. So this would be like the cracked TV screen. You know, those collector's editions that would have that. Or the Mad Television Super Specials. It's like that, but it's Bananas, and see, it's got lots of pages, lots of stuff. So that's fun. That's something fun to look for. Number 43 or 44, sorry, Lonnie Anderson from WKRP in Cincinnati. That's what made her famous. She became... Oh, and they started featuring ad parodies on the back cover that look like the original ads, which are very funny. So we get a parody of WKRP in this issue. And they used to feature artwork by students from the Joe Kubart School. So, and these neat comic stories by R.L. Stine. Pretty cool stuff. And then the next, oh, not the next one. No, that's later. Never mind. 45. Oh, yeah, this was an experimental issue, number 45, because this issue is all humor. There's no serious articles in this at all. So if you're a humor magazine collector, I mean, you got to have this, because this is all humor magazine, not just half humor magazine, but all humor magazine. Number 45. I think as a humor magazine collector, you should buy them all anyway, but if you can find them. But of course, it's very hard to put a collection of bananas together. It's very difficult. Like a complete collection like this is. Okay, so yeah, so this is an all humor issue, like I said. So they're trying this out to see how well it would sell. You know, should we take, and they'd ask readers, should we take the serious stuff out of bananas? Should we convert to full humor? And eventually they did. Spoiler alert. But not yet. Just experimenting with it this time. This is one of the most iconic covers of Bananas magazine. Because we've got, it's number 46. It's got Gary Coleman on the cover. So I like Gary Coleman. I'm a big fan of Gary Coleman. I loved Different Strokes when I was a kid. But he's funny. He's such a funny guy. And he's such an intelligent guy. I saw some interviews with him on YouTube last year. I watched some interviews like on Howard Stern and some older interviews. And I was really surprised by how well-spoken and thoughtful and intelligent he was. I think he had maybe a bad reputation for some stuff that was in the scandal magazines or whatever. I don't know. He had a lot of troubles in his life. I mean, he had bad kidneys. He didn't grow too tall, as you know, and he had a lot of hardships. And then, of course, his parents, I think it was his parents, like took all his money. They siphoned off all his money from his bank account, so he was broke. You know, I feel really badly for this guy, for Gary Coleman. But he was a very intelligent and very talented actor. And he was very funny on Different Strokes as Arnold. So this is funny because they have him saying, "What me worry." So they have him like he's Alfred E. Newman on this cover. which is really funny. There's a bookstore downtown where I live that for years and years, I might even still be there, I don't know, had a poster, or they cut out this picture from the cover of Bananas magazine, and they put it up like on one of their shelves. Now here's the Christy Kramer girl. She's starting to get a bigger part in the magazine. See, this whole feature, I mean, this whole page is just her calling somebody up with a fake phone call, kind of a funny phone call. So she got that whole page there. And she's going to get an even bigger role soon, as we'll see. So there's a Different Strokes parody in this issue, as you can imagine, which is very funny. Ooh, that's a nice picture of Jeannie Francis. Jeannie Francis was on a soap opera. Now, there was a whole thing with Luke and Laura at the time in the early 80s, and that was a phenomenon. There were these two characters on a soap opera, General Hospital, I think it was. They don't think it was A Young and the Restless. No, General Hospital. So, you know, people were just fascinated by these two characters on General Hospital. And they were on the covers like of every magazine. And that's Jeannie Francis there. In fact, the guy that played Luke, which I can't think of his name right now, he even hosted Fridays. And he was actually really funny when he hosted Fridays. We have a Dallas poster in here. More short stories. More science fiction stories. And a BJ and the Bear back cover. Was that show ever really that popular? I didn't see it, but I don't know. 1981, Bananas Yearbook. Now this is this will be the last Bananas Yearbook for a while. They stopped publishing them for a while, probably because they were just cutting back on costs. Maybe Bananas was starting not to sell as well. When video games started taking over in the 80s, this is 81 now. Magazines, humor magazines started not to sell as well. And unfortunately, a lot of them went out of business. Sick Magazine went out of business in 1980. Crazy Magazine went out of business in 1983. So, Bananas maybe started to cut back on the cost, so they stopped publishing the yearbooks every year. Although there would be one more later on, which we'll get to. But there's your Bananas Yearbook for 81. Full of great stuff. Popeye is on the back cover, starring Robin Williams. And now the 81-82 year of Bananas. So the first issue, the covers, now you can see them transitioning into more of a full humor magazine because the covers start featuring, funny captions on them, like the What Me Worry one, Magnum PI saying, "I think the PI stands for pineapple," which isn't really that funny, but they start putting like funny captions on the cover though. So what would the last episode of different TV shows be like? A Mork and Mindy, The Incredible Hulk, you definitely see this kind of thing in Mad and Cracked as well. Fake posters for like high school horror shows. Another thing you see in humor magazines a lot. And here we have the debut of Christy Kramer and her mom. So this is the girl. She got a starring role as Christy Kramer. So this replaces, like I said earlier, the Teens of Ferret High. So she stars in this, you see, with her fictional mom. And her mom is always embarrassing her. So she's bringing boys back to the house. And he is... and she's always like saying things that are, so embarrassing. And that's basically the theme of it. Her mom just embarrasses her all the time. And it's a regular feature that continues throughout the magazine. Christy Kramer and her mom. If anybody was actually in Bananas, any of these models, these people that were in the photo features or whatever, if any of you see this video, leave a comment and say, your memories of working at Scholastic in the Bananas offices and what it was like and, how much fun it was and all that sort of stuff. That would be cool. Granny Meatloaf's Tales of the Impossible is a really funny new recurring feature. This is one of my favorite years of Bananas. There's a lot of funny stuff in it because, like I said, they're transitioning more into full humor at this point. So these Tales of the Impossible are hilarious. Like, just these rambling stories with funny endings. Oh, man, they're really funny. And then they started featuring something called Hey, Lighten Up, which is sort of like the Shut Ups and Crack magazine, but like a nicer version because they're, somebody will say something and they'll say, "My girlfriend just broke up with me. She said that I'm stupid, stingy, and boring." So then the kid says, "Hey, lighten up. She didn't mention your atrocious taste in clothes." So that sort of thing. So somebody will say something and they'll say, "Hey, lighten up," and, a punchline. And he sort of became a mascot for Bananas. You start seeing this kid around a lot. Yeah, he's an Alfred E. Newman kind of guy, in a way, although Alfred E. Newman doesn't really talk, except saying for What Me Worry. And that one time he said, "Yes, me worry," in the Nuclear Meltdown cover. It Never Fails, Don't You Wish is a recurring feature where people could write in and say, "Well, don't you wish this could happen, Don't you wish that your teachers would stop assigning so much homework over the holidays?" That sort of thing. There was a comic called First Date by Elise Newman that ran in most of the issues from now on. These fake phone calls, funny phone calls, a photo feature. Oh, and this new character they introduced called Phil Fly. This is a really cheap feature because all it is like photocopies of illustrations of this fly and really corny fly jokes. So depending on your sense of humor, you might think it's hilarious or you might think it's just really lame. But then we get serious stuff again, a Tom Selleck interview. But yeah, there definitely isn't as much serious stuff now in Bananas. So I think it's even more fun because of all the funny stuff. TV moments we'll never see with more Samuel Whitehead artwork. And then the comic section at the back. Dr. Duck is by Howard Cruz. It's a famous, I think he's an underground cartoonist. Did a lot of independent comics and things. Great artwork. Howard Cruz artwork. And then, of course, Pig Hollow, Cat Nip, Fumbles Maxine by Elise Newman, the same lady that does First Date. Billy Beast, there's the Beast thing again. Joe comic strip. They also published a Beast handbook, which I used to have, but I gave it away because I'm not into the Beast humor that much. So now every issue of Bananas is pretty similar. Like they all have those same features I just showed you in that issue throughout the year. So I won't show you like every one, but they're lots of fun. They're really funny. What number are we up to? 49? Yeah, we're up to 49 with the Dukes of Hazzard on the cover. They're on the cover a lot too, actually. Yeah, great parodies. Yeah, so you get the idea. It's the same type of stuff each issue. So number 50, the big 50th issue, has Tony Geary on the cover. That's the guy's name I was trying to think of before. He played Luke on General Hospital in the Luke and Laura storylines. So he's on the 50th issue. And you see, he was so popular, he's on the cover of Bananas magazine. Oh, and this amazing parody of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Sam Viviano artwork. And this parody started getting longer too. So you start getting like almost the length of a Mad parody. Granny Meatloaf's Tales of the Impossible, Hay Lighten Up, all the things, the comics, all of that. Number 51 has the Greatest American Hero on the cover, popular early 80s show. I doubt that it's really withstood the test of time. I don't think it gets talked about that much anymore, if at all. But I never watched that either. His name is William Catt. Yeah, I didn't know what his name was. But he had his moment in the sun as the Greatest American Hero, and that was popular. Now, the back of the back half of the magazine features a parody of People magazine. So it's upside down, and it's like a full-length, well, not a full length, but it's an extensive parody of People magazine running from the back of the magazine, which other humor magazines have done this sort of thing, and it's a lot of fun. So it continues for a few pages, so you get like a whole parody of People running in the back, which is pretty neat. This is a great cover. Number 52. Beautiful Sam Viviano artwork. It says Brooke Shields goes out on a date. So this guy's going on a date with Brooke Shields, but look at this. He's got to deal with, hairdressers, publicity people, lighting people, So this was a special dating and going steady issue. So I think maybe this was all humor too, this issue. So more and more they started featuring all humor. Christy Kramer and her mom are in there, of course. And yeah, this is all humor. Oh no, there's a true tale of terror at the back. Well, most of it is about dating and whatnot. There's a short story too. It's short stories were kind of boring. Some of them, they're not as wacky. But it's a good issue though. It's a very good issue. Lots of fun stuff. Number 53 is Valerie Bertinelli, another beautiful actress from the time. She was on One Day at a Time, which I've never seen. I keep saying that, right? But yeah, she was very popular. She was married at this time. I think she just got married to that rock star guy. What's his name? Some rock star dude. I forget what his name is. But anyway, she was really popular. I like that cover. She's very pretty. There's a whole article on the Beatles in this issue. So again, if you're a Beatles fan, you seek out the Valerie Bertinelli issue. Yeah, this was kind of a special issue because it had like mostly music articles. Rick Springfield article. He was popular for a while. He was on a soap opera. He had that song Jesse's Girl. I wish that I was Jesse's girl. That was a pretty good song. Sheena Easton. That 9 to 5 song she did was great. I love that song. She is also very attractive. Juice Newton was popular for a while. She had some great songs, mostly remakes of songs like Angel of the Morning. So there's a lot of... this issue actually... See, they're experimenting. Sometimes it'd be mostly funny. Sometimes it'd be more serious. It's like, what's going to sell more, right? So this one's got more serious stuff in it. Kenny Rogers, Valerie Bertinelli article. And then we get into the funny stuff with, again, Christy Kramer and her mom. So there isn't too much funny stuff in this issue because there's a lot of stuff about singers and whatnot. But there's Christy Kramer and her mom. But hey, we get our comic section. Dr. Duck is a very good comic. Joe, of course, and the phone call. You get the phone call thing at the end. You see? That girl, too, is in it quite a bit. I've seen her face quite a bit, too. I think she might have been in the model section, that issue about the models. I'm not sure. Okay, number 54. Now, this issue, there used to be a YouTube video. I couldn't find it when I looked for it today. But there was this great YouTube video on this issue of Bananas. It's the all comics issue of Bananas. And the video went through the entire magazine, and they did a great job of it. It's the only, well, I don't want to say, but it was a great video. I don't know what happened to it, like I said. But this issue is amazing. They were saying that if you're a comic collector, you should seek, if you don't seek out any other issue of Bananas, you should seek out this issue. Because this was another experimental special issue of Bananas, where they just featured all comics. So you got like serious comics, you got funny comics. So you got Bob Stine doing it. You had some great artwork by a lot of different artists. This was like a sword and sorcery or like a fantasy story with amazing artwork. Trying to give you a good look here. Then we had First Date with Elise Newman. There's a few Medi in here as well. Steve Bissett. Yeah, I think Steve Bissett. So he did the artwork here for this horror story. This very scary horror story. some intense artwork from Mr. Bissett in this issue. And Bob Taylor doing a Granny Meatloaf comic, a space comic with art by Rick Veitch. Or Rick Vetch, is it? Or Rick Veitch? Newt, again, from Ass Hat Podcast. You're a huge fan of Rick Veitch, I know. So you might want to track down this issue. He did the artwork for this story, Space Story, which goes on for a few pages. And we have a story about a prospector, an old prospector, with art by Steve Bissett again. Very, very detailed. Look at this artwork. So this issue's bananas is quite different. The all comics issue. So you want to see this? Oh, this was really funny. Okay, so Sam Viviano did a comic for this issue called Life with Blinky, which is a parody of those old comics, like the Archie rip-off comics, like that DC and Marvel did, like Binky and that kind of stuff. So it starts off like a normal thing with these teenage shenanigans, like Archie-type shenanigans. But he ends up, or somebody ends up like taking a gorilla to the prom. Right? And it's drawn just like in the style of those stories. And the gorilla just starts eating everybody. It actually starts eating everybody. It's really crazy. I mean, you wouldn't expect to see that in a Scholastic magazine. You know? That's kind of graphic for a Scholastic magazine. It's really funny, though. And then we have the usual comments like Joe. And Cat and Nip. And the rest were in there, too. I just didn't show them all. Okay. So that's a great issue. Number 54. The All Comics issue. All right. Number 55 has the Facts of Life on the cover, as drawn by Samuel Whitehead, who I think did the Facts of Life parody in Cracked Magazine. This is a show I've seen every episode of. It's a funny sitcom from the 80s, and I enjoyed it. Mrs. Garrett, Charlotte Ray's Mrs. Garrett is just fantastic, and it's about these girls that go to this school, Tootie, Joe, Blair, and Natalie. And it's a funny sitcom. It ran for 9 years, I think. So, and it's still popular today. So there's a Facts of Life cover, and you get a parody of the show in here, of course. And all the other regular features that you always get. And sometimes Joe would be on the back covers now. And these back cover Joes are always a lot of fun. So these are all great issues. Like I said, I'm not going to show you everything. This video is already 3 hours long. That is a long video. So, yeah, I'm not going to show you every single thing. But number 56... Oh, so instead of having a yearbook, now they started publishing 2 separate individual summer issues instead. And now the magazine has like partly black and white and partly color as well. So it's got the Beatles on the cover again. So very collectible for the Beatles fans. It's even got the Christy Kramer girl on the back cover this time, as you can see. And we got all the regular features. Yeah, lots of good stuff. There's a parody of The Love Boat in this issue. Number 57 is a Scott Baio cover. This is before Charles in Charge. This is still when he was Chachi on Happy Days. He's probably just about to go on to Joni Loves Chachi, actually, but sitcom that lasted for a year. 82. We're up to 82 now. 1982. Okay. Pretty cool. These are fun issues. Now they really started to cut costs because the size of bananas got a little smaller. Like, it's still magazine size, but it's a little smaller. Like, so you can see, put them here. You see 57, the yellow cover of Scott Baio, you can see it like peeking out here. So 58, the size of the magazine got a bit smaller at this point. They're cutting costs, and they start putting more black and white in, but there's still a good amount of color. And this is a really cool cover, number 58, with Pac-Man on the cover. Of course, Pac-Man was the man of the year in 1982. His video game was so popular. And yeah, that's a really neat cover. So this is starting the next year. So you're going to start to see more video game humor as video games became more and more popular. So yeah, you see video game humor in bananas now, which I like. I think that's really neat. I like the old video games. I like the Nintendo games later. I like video games up to about 95, and then I kind of lost interest after that. An absolute amazing parody of Hill Street Blues by Sam Viviano. I mean, look at the illustration here. It's just gorgeous. So this is like what Mad Magazine would have been like if it was in color in the 1980s. Of course, they did start putting color in the magazine much later on. But if it had been in color in the 80s, it'd be something like this, like bananas. Christy Kramer's in color. Sometimes in color, sometimes in black and white. So she's still in the magazine. She's for this new year. They start putting posters in the middle that they're not like, they're supposed to be funny posters now, because this is actually where the magazine became all humor. Yeah, this is where they transitioned to completely humor. So now there's no serious stuff in the magazine. From 58 on, it's all humor. It's just humor magazine now. So yeah, like this locker patrolled by guard socks, you know, kind of, the posters are, you know, not that funny, but there's a lot of funny articles in here. Stay away from a kid who does this, you know, those kind of things. School supplies you'll really need, you know. But it's funny though, like I said, like I keep saying. But a joke section at the back. Comics. Pig Hollow, sometimes they expanded it to 2 pages. And then they started putting like cutouts into the magazine that you could, you know, cut out, and like, so you have fake cards in this magazine. It's like sympathy cards and thinking of you, happy birthday cards, you know, things like that. You got Joe, and Joe, of course, is still in the magazine. It Never Fails is at the back now. It Never Fails. I mean, Hey, Lighten Up is at the back. Sorry. And we get ad parodies on the back cover. Um, 59 features, you know, Rocky. This is one of the sequels to Rocky. I think that'd be Rocky 8 when it XIII. So, you know, he's an older dude now. This is what he looks like. I mean, Sylvester Stallone, you know, he could do that today now, right? I mean, you know, still doing Rocky sequels. What would it be like in the future? You know, that kind of thing. Movie sequels we'll soon be seeing, so not just Rocky, but E.T., E.T. Returns, which they never did make a sequel to E.T., surprisingly. Conan, Annie, Poltergeist, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Superman. This poster's pretty neat. It's like Ye Hang-Ups in Cracked Magazine. Have a nice day. Poster. And lots of comics. Lots of fun comics here. Number 60 with the Fall Guy. Is his name Lee Remick? I think, maybe? No, Lee Majors, right? Lee Majors, the guy that plays $6 Million Man. I guess he's the same guy that played the Fall Guy later on. I think that's who he is. So they do a parody of the Fall Guy in here. Superheroes that flopped, so you get funny superheroes. This is drawn by Bob Taylor. You get a funny animal poster. TV moments we'll never see, you know, all the usual type of humor magazine things. And number 61, Magnum PI. So you can see now they're featuring like a lot of cartoon drawings on the book because it's a humor like full humor magazine now. So instead of just putting pictures, sometimes they do cartoon illustrations more often. Great Sam Viviano cover. So this is 83. We're up to 1983 now. Fantastic Magnum PI parody. They reduced the number of bananas each year, too, at this time. This is one of the last issues that the Christy Kramer girl's in. And you can see they have a full-sized poster picture of her here. It says, win a date with Christy Kramer. So she was retiring from Bananas magazine pretty soon after this. I did see her in an issue of National Lampoon magazine around this time. Where she was like in a parody for an ad for acne cream or something like that. In E.T. E.T. was a phenomenon. Everybody was talking about E.T. So how to care for your extraterrestrial. So if you get an E.T. in your house, how do you take care of that creature? Oh, you got a Rocky Balboa poster. This is before he was Rambo. I think it's about the time of the first Rambo movie, isn't it? 1983. But Rambo didn't really become a phenomenon until 1985. I think when the second one came out. Fake certificates, awards. You see a lot of that kind of thing in the humor magazines. Some of these are probably a little funnier than ones you'd see in some others, though. 62 is a Knight Rider cover. Not the best cover, really. So you get a Knight Rider parody. They started running out of steam around this time, I think. But it's still fun. It's not in its heyday anymore, but it's still fun. Star Wars 3 cover with Darth Vader, 63 here. And a Star Wars 3, well, it's not really a full-out parody of it, but it's jokes about it. Then the 2 summer issues, 64, special 3D issue. I remember when I got this, I was really disappointed that it actually isn't in 3D. So, it's 3D, but the 3Ds are dumb, disgusting, and disgraceful. So, you know, kind of a cheat there, right? I mean, that's a humor magazine type thing, a misleading cover. But I was hoping it would actually be in 3D, even though I don't really like 3D comics and magazines because it's kind of hard to see with the glasses. But still, it would have been a nice novelty. And there, I noticed there's a UPC code, so I think that means it must have been sold on newsstands at this time, near the end of the magazine, as well as through the Scholastic Book Fair. So these ones feature partly reprints, partly new material. 65, The Best of Bananas. Now, here's the last year of Bananas. Starts in 1983. Fall of 1983. So number 66, Mr. T. Yeah, this is when Mr. T was the big thing. He was a phenomenon. And that's a pretty cool cover. They start featuring these fake ads, which are very funny, on the inside front cover. And you still have Hey Lighten Up. The F Team instead of the A Team is a parody. So still lots of good stuff. Some of it seemed more like filler at this time, but there's still a lot of good stuff in here. A fake exercise guide in the middle. And you still have the comics and the other regular features. Christy Kramer's gone now from the magazine, so there's no recurring... I don't think there's a recurring photo feature that replaced it. I don't see one. Unless there's something I'm forgetting about that came near the end. And Joe is still in here. 67, you know you've got a bad computer when... So now we're starting to get not into just video game humor, but also computer humor, because home computers were a new thing back then. And a great novelty. So I like computer gags too, because, you know, I have a computer. I can relate with this, even though this is, of course, very dated. I like that. It's very nostalgic. It's a lot of fun. It reminds you about what it was like, you know, to have a computer back in the 80s. I never had a computer in the 80s. I was just a little, very small. So I didn't have a computer until the 90s, until about 97, I'd say, about 1997. Well, I think I might have had one earlier, 94 or 95, but I didn't really do anything with it because there's no internet or anything, and there wasn't a whole lot that I didn't really know how to do a lot with the computer. Oh, thought I had some pages were repeated here, but it says 10 things parents always do to embarrass you, but then it's 10 things parents always say to embarrass you. So it's two different similar articles. Lots of joke sections. A lot more black and white now, as they're cutting costs. TV game show we'd like to see. Number 68 has the Smurfs on the cover. I liked the Smurfs when I was a kid. They were also huge in the 80s. So that brings back some fun 80s memories there. Yeah, there's lots of Smurfs jokes in this issue. Mr. T. Mr. T's in a lot of these issues now because he was so popular. There's a big poster of Mr. T in the middle. Sports jokes. Oh, there was a new feature. Yeah, so there's a new photo feature called Wendy and Margie, which I completely forgot about because it didn't run for very long because Bananas didn't last very much longer. But these two girls were Wendy and Margie. And I think they just like gossip about stuff or they talk about things that are going on. I don't know. I don't really remember. 69 has Remington Steele on the cover. There's another show that was really of its time that you don't hear about later on at all, with Pierce Bronson before he was James Bond. And I don't know who the lady is. Yeah, I don't know who she is. The Bananas Movie Awards. So as you can see, the Hey Lighten Up kid is hosting the movie awards, so he's sort of become their mascot, their humor magazine mascot. So with the red hair, he does sort of kind of, and the missing tooth, he kind of does look like Alfred E. Newman a bit. Movie scenes we'd love to see. Well, that that's a Mad Magazine thing. But lots of fun, lots of fun. And so it goes. More Wendy and Margie. Ad parodies, Joe comics. Number 70 has Three's Company on the cover. This is 83, so this is near the end of Three's Company. I don't know who that lady is. She replaced Suzanne Summers in the later years. Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter were still in the show. So another Three's Company parody, but a parody of the later episodes. Some cutout cards or something in there. Number 71, David Hasselhoff cover, Knight Rider. These later issues can be tricky to find too. If comic superheroes lived in the real world. So that's a fun kind of article. Doing commercials and things like that. Silver Spoons. Oh, that's another sitcom that was really popular in the 80s with Ricky Schroeder. Silver Spoons parody in this issue. Pretty cool. Oh, and then just, yeah, there's Wendy and Margie again. So that was the recurring feature. So they always had a recurring photo feature after they hit it success with that Teens Affair at High. They always had one later. This is funny. Mad Marvin's True Life Horror Tales. It's sort of like Goosebumps in a way, like an early version of Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, but with more comedy. More just funny, And Joe's like on the back cover. I should show you. The Joe comic strips are on the back cover of like most of these later issues, and they're always good. Always good. The last issue, so this is the last regular issue of Bananas, number 72, with Mr. T on the cover again. So there's your last Bananas. Well, it's not the last Bananas, but it's the last regular issue, which was a summer issue. So they were supposed to publish another summer issue, but it didn't get published, so I guess they got canceled right after this came out. There's a lot of Mr. T stuff in there, jokes and whatnot. But in the summer, they did come out with one more yearbook, and this was the last issue of Bananas, was this yearbook. And this kind of reverted back to the format of the earlier Bananas, in that they featured some serious articles, I think, as well as the humor. I don't know. It looks like it's all humor here. Maybe there isn't any serious articles. Maybe there aren't any serious articles, I should say, proper grammar. Because it looks to me like it's all humor. I thought there was some. Well, there's this. Okay, so this is something they did in a few of the yearbooks. They did the winners and the losers of the year, which I thought was really interesting to see who they thought were on their way up or on their way down, or who were the most successful people of the year and who were kind of like has-beens at the time. That's always fascinating. So, of course, Michael Jackson was a winner. Mr. T was a winner. The A-Team, Boy George was a winner. The Fonz was, Happy Days was at the end, so he's a loser now. Although I'd never say the Fonz was a loser, This girl is a winner. I don't know who she is. Christy Brinkley. Oh, Christy Brinkley, of course, right? Billy Joel's wife and famous model of the time. Uptown Girl was written about her. She was a huge winner back then. David Hasselhoff was a winner, or Kit His Car. The Stray Cats. Oh, that's a great band. I love the Stray Cats. They had such great songs. I Won't Stand in Your Way is my favorite one. Their doo-wop ballad, and of course their Stray Cats strut and Rock This Town, and a great band, the Stray Cats. Loser is Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not a fan of Ozzy Osbourne, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I think it's funny they have him as a loser here. David Bowie was a winner. John Ritter is still a winner. It's the end of Three's Company, but they say he is a funny guy, so he's still a winner. Matt Dillon was a popular young actor at the time. He was a winner. Some guy on Dallas named Chris Atkins was a loser. I've never heard of him. The monkey on Mr. Smith was a loser. Poor monkey. Because his show was not successful. So it's funny to see what they say, winners and losers, as I said. And they did that in some of the other yearbooks earlier, too. But most of this is humor, that last issue of Bananas. So that is Bananas. That is Bananas. So, I mean, that's a lot of Bananas. That's 72 issues of Bananas, plus 2 yearbooks that were not numbered. 3 yearbooks, because that last one wasn't numbered. So, like 75 issues of Bananas, counting those 3 unnumbered yearbooks, plus those paperbacks. And then you get all the, you get everything, right? So, I've shown you so many Bananas today. So many Bananas. Every banana there is. That's my complete collection of Bananas. So you're saying, okay, Tom, you can finally end this video, right? After, 3.5 hours, you could finally end this video. But not yet, unfortunately, because I need to go to the washroom again, but not quite yet. I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to try to make this quick. Because Bananas actually, people don't know this, too. Even Bananas fans probably don't know this. But Bananas came back again the next year. But they changed the name of it. It's not Bananas, but it's almost the exact same magazine as Bananas. Scholastic came out with another magazine humor magazine called Maniac. And it is again edited by R.L. Stine. So it's pretty much Bananas. But it's different. It's got different things in it. It's half serious and half funny like the old Bananas were. And this magazine, by the way, is so darn obscure that you're not going to find a mention of this hardly anywhere on the internet. Maniac. So it obviously wasn't very successful. I don't think I've ever seen an auction for it on eBay. I was fortunate enough to stumble across a blog where a guy stumbled across these issues of Maniac in a used bookstore, and he bought them all, and then he sent them all to me, knowing what a big fan I am of humor magazines and Bananas. So I have all the issues of Maniac, except for one. I'm missing the second issue of Maniac. And I had all the Bananas, as you saw. So Maniac, the covers are kind of weird because they just feature teenagers, like hugging each other or whatever, or doing, they're just posing. It's kind of strange, I don't know if that would catch people's attention, like teenagers' attention at the time. I don't know. But they'd have a lot of contests because they were really trying to get people to be interested in the magazine. Now, who's a maniac, right? So what celebrities would be considered maniacs? They go over that. Then this is something they featured that was new called the Maniac Top 40 by John Holstrom. And I think he did a similar thing like in a punk magazine or he did it in Stop magazine where you have like a top 40 of things he was interested in. And this is a lot of fun. It's things that he considered cool at the time. And then I think that's really neat to read that, to see that. They still have the ad parodies. You still have the same artist as Bananas. So Samuel Whitehead is still in here. Sam Viviano is still in here. I think Bob Taylor is still in here. They have a feature called Give Me a Break, which is very similar to It Never Fails in Bananas. Then they feature interviews. So Molly Ringwald was in all those John Hughes movies, of course. Very popular actress at the time. We have a parody of Splash called Splat by Sam Viviano. So you can see it's really just continuing Bananas under a different name and with a few changes. The Teens of Delray Mall. So, I mean, look, how similar is that to the Teens of Ferret High? Except that these are not photo stories, but short stories. Crossword puzzles, Maniacs of the Month, How to Make Your Hair Look Terrible. I say that because some of those 80s hairstyles were just not that great, in my opinion. There's some pretty wild and gaudy fashions, in the 80s. It's not very good. Some weird punk kind of, looks. They'd have this, I think this might have been every issue, I'm not sure, like a pajama party was like, they're just telling jokes, basically. News for Nerds, because nerds were in the news because of the Revenge of the Nerds movie, and because of computers and video games and everything. So that was a continuing feature. It's very funny. The shopping guide, which continues those funny classified ads that were in Bananas magazine. It's the exact same thing. And then you have the ad parodies on the back, just like you had on Bananas. Okay. So I don't have number 2 of Maniac, but this is number 3. Can win a bike. Oh, they had contests in Bananas all the time, too. The top 40, like I said, it's mainly the same things. I don't know who this is. Ari Myers. I guess she was an up-and-coming star of the time. What does it say she was in? Kate Nally. I thought Kate Nally was a cop show. I'm thinking Cagney and Lacey. I don't know what Kate Nally... was it a sitcom? I've definitely heard of it. I guess she was their daughter. Kate Nally's... Wait, was Kate Nally 2 women, though? Were they raising like a girl together? Is it one of those types of shows, where there's no guys, so it's 2 women? It's like that one with the guy, my 2 dads, like that sort of thing. Was it like that? I don't know. I never watched that either, so I don't know. Yeah, Pajama Party again. Oh, they still do these phone call things, too, like they did in Bananas magazine. Dear Miss Maniac is probably a fake advice column like they'd have in Bananas. Pig Hollow, look at that. Pig Hollow's still in here. So it continued over from Bananas. And First Date is still in here. And Joe is still in here. So it's really funny that this is really just Maniac, but they're trying to pretend it's a different magazine to try to get up the sales. I mean, this is just Bananas, but they're trying to pretend it's a different magazine. Maniac number 4. A great parody of MTV. Early days of MTV here. With the VJs. Music videos were fun back then. That was... Oh, and they used to have free stickers inside. Somebody cuts them out. This is the issue I have here. So that's pretty cool. Two computer freaks go out on a date. They're really going after the computer audience. That's pretty neat. So they're probably talking about their hard drives and how many bytes they have and stuff like that. But, funny way. Ali Sheedy interview in this one. Now, I know who Ali Sheedy is. She was in the Breakfast Club. Very popular at the time. Short stories, Love in the Fast Lane. Then you get your comics, Pig Hollow and Joe. And First Date. Maniac number 5. Stickers. Pretty neat. I always like that when they have little bonuses in magazines and comics. Trivia night. Oh, we're up to 1985 now, so, Trivial Pursuit was a big deal. And I love Trivial Pursuit. I love playing that. That was fun. Rick Springfield interview. And that guy, Rod Stewart, I think I saw. Yeah, but that's like a fake National Enquirer type thing. National Shocker parody. And then the last issue of Maniac, which can be considered, if you want, the last issue of Bananas, under a different name, is number 6. So it only ran for 1 year. Ended in the spring of 1985. Had a parody of Supergirl. A Dee Snider interview. You remember Twisted Sister? Remember that? Duran Duran. Yeah, if they had gone on a bit longer, we would have like a Back to the Future parody. And I say that because Back to the Future is my favorite movie of all time. I love Back to the Future. I just think it's an amazing movie. So it would have been cool to see a parody of it in Bananas, Maniac, Bananas. But Mad Magazine did a great parody of Back to the Future, and Crack Magazine did a great parody of it. And you got your comic strips. And that's about it. That's funny. They got Hip Hop Hospital. It's like breakdancing hospital people and everything, which is that's before that. I would think the term hip hop was in the mainstream. I don't know. Was it around like with breakdancing or not? I don't know. Or were they just saying people were hip hopping around, and they just happened to come up with that phrase. It must have been when the term was just starting or something. I'm not sure. Oh, I should show you the back cover for 5, because it's got Cabbage Patch Teenagers. So instead of Cabbage Patch Kids, which were, oh man, they were huge. They got a parody of that on the back cover. So anyway, that's it. That's finally it. Oh man. Okay, so I hadn't made a video in like 7 months, something like that. So I hope this made up for it somehow. Well, if you're interested in 70s and 80s pop culture, interested in Bananas magazine, you got a big long video today to watch. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I want to say that even though I haven't been making many videos, I really appreciate the support I've gotten from people. Probably should have said this at the start of the video, not like 3.5 hours into the video. But I've gotten so many nice comments from people on my videos. People asking me when I'm going to make more videos and, ask me how I am and everything. I have some regulars, and I've had a few new subscribers over the last few months, even though I haven't been making any videos. And that's very nice. And I've still been getting some nice comments, even like from new people that just discovered my Sad Sack video or something like that. So I really appreciate that. It's very nice of everybody to do that. So I want you to know that. I love getting comments on the video. I hope people enjoy this video. I hope it was fun. This was a special, feature-length epic video. I mean, I'd like to try to make videos shorter, in the future. if I decide to make more. But anyway, I probably will someday. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you liked it, and I'll see y'all again someday. You know, if I decide to make another video. So, because I got so much I could talk about. I do love talking about these things. My comics and magazines. So anyway, see y'all. I hope you all have a good day, a good night, whatever time it is, where you are. And this is Tom's Comic Curios signing off for now. See you.